Here.
Meek.
Here.
Ray is here. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on our agenda is to do some staff and student recognitions. We'll turn that over to Dr. Tucker.
Thank you, Director Ray, all of our directors, and our full house here tonight. Good evening, everyone. Well, you can do a little better than that. We're getting ready to go on Christmas break. Good evening, everyone. Very good, very good. Thanks for being here. We have a full agenda tonight. We have quite a few students and staff to recognize, and I want to first start by drawing your attention as you leave to the beautiful artwork. Some of you may have even noticed it out front. We have artwork from Acres Green Elementary, Crest Hill Middle School, and Global Village Academy. Let's give those outstanding student artists and staff a round of applause. Next, we have a very short video in which we're going to recognize some outstanding, some heroic work from students at Thunder Ridge High School. Let's roll that video.
The announcement of our big winner, and I think that the decision was relatively unanimous based on the overall strength of the presentation, is our lovely young ladies from Oasis.
Very short, but the work and the impact of their work will be long-lasting in our district. As you saw in the video, two of our outstanding students at Thunder Ridge, Melanie Zhao and Mia Hayden, co-founders of Oasis Mental Health and seniors at Thunder Ridge High School, took first place, and they won a $100,000 grant from the, yes, yes. And they competed against plenty of adults. So they won this $100,000 grant at the Denver Startup Week pitch competition finals in September. Melanie and Mia were the only two students in the competition going up against some very polished and professional adults. Melanie and Mia could not be here. They're at work tonight. They're two of our busiest and most ambitious students. Now, by the way, they won this award last year as juniors to provide additional social and emotional and mental health services to their colleagues. And that program that they're establishing will probably be not only replicated throughout our district, but throughout the country. Let's give them another round of applause. Next, I would ask Thunder Ridge's own, their dean, Marshawn Uhouse, to please join us up front. Let's give Marshawn a round of applause. Okay, Marshawn, tell us about the impact of the Oasis program and what difference it's making.
Absolutely. I can tell you that at Thunder Ridge, along with many other schools, I'm sure, the importance of focusing on mental health and making sure that our students have access to safe, reliable adults, and even connecting them to other services at need be is what we are passionate about at Thunder Ridge. The Oasis Room has provided a safe space for students to come, kind of reset their day, reach out to an adult if need be. We also have students that end up in the Oasis Room that end up really helping each other, kind of giving each other those pep talks and get ready to get back to class, because that is the purpose of Oasis, is that we come in, we kind of take care of ourselves, and then we move forward to be resilient to get back into that academic classroom. And I think the impact that it has had on our school is tremendous, and I can't wait to see where it grows, and I'm really hoping we can bring it to the rest of the district.
Outstanding. Yes, round of applause. before we take a quick photo here, I want to publicly acknowledge the board again for your support of this program. Oasis made one of its first pitches right here in front of the board, and our very own director, Chancho Shore, wrote out a check. Was it $1,000 or something like that? Yes, but as always, when I see those two wonderful young ladies, they are very thankful of the board's support and certainly your financial support.
Absolutely. It was very exciting to see that they won this award, and I couldn't be prouder of our students because it's really kids who are going, this is such an old thing to say, but kids are the future. Kids are our world, and when we see these kids come up and present in front of the board on behalf of the board, every one of us, our heart just beats so rapidly because that's what we're here for, is the kids. So congratulations to them and to you.
Thank you.
I'm going to take a quick picture here. Okay, very good. Okay, next we're going to honor a staff member who ensures each day that each of our students has the literary and the reading skills and resources that they need in order to have a successful education. Would our literacy intervention team, led by Meg Dyke, please join us? Yeah. Meg, I understand you recently received a fantastic scholarship. I think it was a full-time, year-round scholarship at the Texas Women's University, focusing on how best to help first graders develop their literacy skills, especially struggling students. Tell us a little bit about that, Meg.
I'm doing a full year of training at TWU to be an additional literacy coach. We have lots of needs in our district, and we want to expand our expertise to be able to help more specialists have the very, very best techniques to be able to help our struggling learners and expand our impact and help teachers and ultimately have all of those kids in our classrooms as well.
Okay. Now, I just thought about the great things you just said. What can school district staff and parents do to increase literacy amongst our young people?
The very first thing to do is talk to their children and have really rich conversations, as well as everyone knows that you need to read, of course, with your kids. But just the conversation and engagement is probably the most important thing besides reading to young children.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
All right, well, let's take a quick photo. Oh, absolutely you do.
I've known this teacher for a long time, and other amazing teachers that are out in the audience. The Reading Recovery Program is an amazing program, but it wouldn't be an amazing program without incredible teachers who take the time to learn on their own time, all the time, to learn about how to best serve the needs of some of our struggling learners. So those of you out there and you up here, thank you so much for your time and your effort, and congratulations.
Okay, very good. And now a quick picture. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Before we conclude our student staff recognition portion of the board meeting, on behalf of the board and the community, we want to thank all of our outstanding staff members and parents for your tremendous support of our 68,000 students and supporting our district. Thank you.
And if I may, while we are doing student and staff recognitions, I'd like to just recognize one of our own, Director Holtzman, Vice President Holtzman, over the weekend was recently selected to serve on the Colorado Association of School Boards. This is another volunteer position. She gets no pay for that, but this is an organization that represents all 178 districts, and so it's wonderful that we now have a voice at that level, that association that networks with all the other 177 school districts. So I just want to recognize and congratulate Director Holtzman for that accomplishment. Next on our agenda is to accept the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Holtzman, seconded by Graziano. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Chancho Shore?
Aye.
Graziano?
Aye.
Holtzman?
Aye.
Lung?
Aye.
Meek?
Aye.
Ray? Aye. That passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is student comment, and I know because of the quick turnaround with our board meetings, we just had a board meeting last week, as a matter of fact, I don't believe we have Jay or Zoe here from Student Advisory Group, but I do want to pause. This is actually a time for us to encourage any students who would like to talk with us about their educational experience and concerns or affirmations in terms of things we need to know. So were there any students in the audience that wanted to speak during this time? All right. Then we will then move on to public comment. As you know, the board values hearing diverse viewpoints from a broad spectrum of citizens throughout our community, specifically on any issue that impacts the educational needs of our students. 2 policies guide how public comment to the board is received: Board Policy KE, Public Complaints, and Board Policy BEDH, Public Participation at Board Meetings. Board Policy BEDH explains that since the board's responsibility is setting policy for the school district, members of the public should direct their comments to policy matters. Board Policy KE outlines the process for responding to grievances and complaints and explains that the board believes that concerns and grievances are best handled and resolved as close to the origin of a concern as possible. Therefore, we encourage the proper channeling of concerns. For example, concerns that involve a child should begin with a teacher, then the building administrator, then the director of schools, chief academic officer if it's a curriculum issue, assistant superintendent, and superintendent before appealing to the Board of Education. To maintain this decorum of mutual respect, I would ask that speakers refrain from using individual names in an offensive manner, as this only distracts from the issue of concern. Throughout the meeting, the board follows Robert's Rules of Orders to guide it in participating in an orderly and fairly conducted meeting. Under those rules, if a director calls for a point of order, all discussions and comments should stop so that a determination can be made as to whether a procedural rule or board policy has been violated. Therefore, if a point of order is made while public comments being made, a speaker should stop until otherwise directed to continue. Each speaker tonight is allotted up to 3 minutes to address the board. Please know that this is our time to just listen without engaging in discussion. However, your comments will be reflected upon as we discuss the agenda item that you are addressing. So as we proceed to public comment now, I will call the person that is to speak, as well as the person that's to speak next, and feel free to come up to this front row. So we'll begin with the Wan family. Is the Wan family here? No Wans. And then next is the Porter family. Do we have anyone representing the Porter family? All right, seeing no Porter family as well. Next on our agenda, or on our public comment list, is Drew Storvik. Is Drew Storvik here? And then following Drew is Mike Truskowski. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here really to speak on behalf of World Compass Academy. I know that we're up against charter renewal, and so I really just wanted to thank you officially for letting me come and address you this evening. I volunteered to speak on behalf of WCA, World Compass Academy, whom I refer to as WCA in my remarks. The true love and respect that my family has for this school can't be measured. We're a founding family at WCA. My daughter was part of the first kindergarten class. What I hope to demonstrate tonight is how WCA truly framed my daughter, how the school is responsible for her tremendous academic and social growth. Just last year, she was selected for the Gifted program, and I know it's a result of tremendous faculty and exceptional curriculum she's exposed to every day at World Compass. Equally, my son, only 1 year younger, has thrived under the school's great teaching and principal leadership. He has grown by leaps and bounds in math, reading, and foreign language. His focus on Spanish, my daughter Mandarin, it's incredible to see how much they've already learned in respect to their new languages. To literally see strangers stop in their tracks when my daughter is spitting Mandarin on the playground. And yes, for those wondering, we deliberately put them in different foreign language classes so they can't talk bad about their parents at the dinner table without our knowledge. I believe I have a fairly unique relationship with WCA. My wife and I have volunteered at the school for many hours over the last 5 years. We have formed great relationships with our current senior administration and teachers. I co-lead the school's Watchdog program. We provide security, support teachers, as well as fellowship and mentorship to our students. Whenever I'm on campus, I can tell you, everywhere I look, students are happy, they're encouraged. I see children excited to enter the school in the mornings, just as excited to tell their parents what they did at pickup. I also believe through faculty guidance and demonstration, our students as young as kindergarten are respectful, helpful. They carry themselves much older than they even are. I'm not really sure how you can find that at other schools. And it's just not about excelling in the classroom. Teachers truly invest in our students. They go out of their way to make sure our students feel accepted and supported. It amazes me how well students get along and get each other's back. I've seen at the playground, 6th graders throwing the ball around with 3rd graders. It's just a really cool dynamic. I believe the behavior at our school, the minimal bullying, is directly attributed to the programs and oversight handed down by our tremendous principals. Not to say over the last few years, we haven't had our challenges. I assure you, probably with every school, we face them. We've had some turnover, but one thing I can state unequivocally, that it has been a true blessing. Because to not go through this turnover, we would get Susan, Bethany, and Samantha to be our principals, and they are the truly light that guides our school. They're truly the catalyst that has made WCA such a stronger higher learning institution. Parents and students look to them in the highest regard as leaders and can't fathom WCA without their guidance and experience. In closing, I'd like to make a recommendation that our current senior administration be allowed to continue. I, like many at the school, believe the co-leadership model works extremely well at WCA. Each principal has their own strengths and works together extremely well. I know for a fact that faculty and support do not want any more changes, and they look forward to working for our principals for hopefully years to come. I thank you very much, the board.
Thank you, Mr. Storvik. Mike Truskowski. After Mike Truskowski is Don Morris.
Thank you, board, for taking the time to say a few things here. I'm going to echo a lot of the same things that Drew had said. We have slightly different backgrounds. My wife and I moved out here a couple of years ago, and this is the first school we've had our actual daughter in, Evelyn. And we've had a wonderful experience so far, and I think that's a direct impact of the staff, the principals, the faculty, and everybody there. I also help out with Watchdogs. I started last year volunteering and being a part of the school, and then this year Drew and I are tag team in that right now. And I get to witness, you know, the teachers and the direct impact they make on our students and the help they're doing and all the great work they're doing. And we've had just a tremendous experience. I wish I could be name dropping here, but 2 weeks ago, I was able to watch my daughter accept an award in front of the school. And I think it just shows that, you know, how much growth she's had. Our son will be in kindergarten next year, hopefully. And I just wanted to say how that I appreciate your time and appreciate you hearing our story. And I really hope we keep everybody in place at this point moving forward. So thank you for your time.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Truskowski.
Yep.
Don Morris. After Don Morris is Mike Stern.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Morris. I have been a first grade teacher at World Compass Academy for the past 5 years. Like many of the staff members, my 2 daughters both attend World Compass Academy and have since kindergarten. Some of the appealing offerings at World Compass Academy include the choice of language my daughters could take starting in preschool, the identification of each child's ability, grouping them with other students of similar abilities in the primary subjects of reading and math, which provide an opportunity for appropriate but challenging learning opportunities for each student. I also enjoy teaching at World Compass Academy. The structure of challenging students where they are and the leading edge objective to elevate each and every student to their maximum potential is invigorating but also challenging to the teaching staff. We want our students to be able to go anywhere and do anything. This is my 5th year teaching at World Compass Academy. One of the main reasons I returned for a 5th year was due to Dr. Borzyk's huge improvement in climate and culture that she brought to our school this past school year. My tenure has afforded me to witness the growing pains of a new school, some of which I believe would have been found in any new school, but other struggles have been brought by a lack of experienced and proven leadership. Dr. Borzik has brought precisely the leadership that WCA was in desperate need of. She has implemented effective curriculum changes that align with the State of Colorado 2020 standards and which are vertically aligned through the grade levels. Dr. Borzik has provided access to professional development and encouraged our continuous education. We meet weekly for continuous improvement in our inquiry-based learning, such as Reader's Workshop and aligning our writing curriculum. Her effective and proactive communication has enabled the staff to address a whole host of impediments at WCA that were inhibiting us from becoming a high-functioning, enviable educational facility that we are rapidly becoming. We have thrived under her leadership and enabling WCA to maintain the same administration in place for the past 2 years. It is hard to imagine World Compass Academy without the magnificent leadership of Dr. Borzik as our elementary principal. I look forward to a 3rd year with this amazingly talented team that she has developed and allowed to flourish. Thank you for your time.
Very good. Name is Morris. Mike Stern. After Mike Stern is Heather Whitley.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I've been asked by my staff from WCA, I'm a middle school teacher. I am the team lead for the Mandarin department, and I'm also the team lead for the history department. Personally, I have lived abroad for nearly 20 years and worked in 3 prior schools internationally before coming to WCA. WCA has been the most supportive work environment, which can be seen in the way that our students support and encourage each other academically and emotionally. Many of our middle school teachers have their own children who attend WCA. We have a collaborative culture in the middle school, which allows for cross-cultural projects and enhanced learning opportunities. Our professional relationships have allowed us to extend our learning opportunities even beyond the classroom. We are working together to create community outreach programs that require students to use all the skills that they have acquired in their core classes. In addition, there is a strong sense of support and encouragement as we work together to grow professionally as teachers. Our global perspective, coupled with our foreign language department, give our students relevant skills for tomorrow's workplace. And statistically speaking, when a middle school first opens, test scores drop. However, our middle school has achieved high MAP and CMAS scores from the first year. Our scores have remained high, and this is due to our combined commitment to teach the curriculum with fidelity, our communication with parents and students, and our strong relationship with our administration that allows for growth and adaptive, positive change. And I just really want to thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to be able to come up here and to present, and we thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. Heather Whitley. After Heather Whitley is Kelly Tabaka.
Thank you all for having me up here. I'm Heather Whiteley. I am the SAC chair for the School Accountability Committee at World Compass Academy. And I just wanted to tell you about the growth that we have seen from the first year until like our last survey last year. A couple of huge numbers are the satisfaction amongst the teachers with their current administration versus what we had before. Prior years, we saw communication and just trusting in administration was 42%. Not great. Last year, it was up to 95% satisfaction. And it's just to speak to Bethany and Dr. Borzik and Sam Senyu. I almost messed it up, Sam. Is just immaculate. And they have just grown the school so much in just 1 year and continue to do so now. They've also increased the climate and culture with parents. The satisfaction from parents has gone through the roof as well.
And my kids are excited to go to school every day. My son is now in 4th grade. He was in the first kindergarten class. He comes home telling me things that he learns in 4th grade that I probably didn't even learn until 7th grade. So the math that they're doing is beyond what I learned probably in all of my years of schooling. I'm from Wyoming, so. And my first grader has Miss Morris as a teacher, and she loves going to school and comes home telling me about how great Miss Morris was every single day. So a renewal for this school would mean the world to multiple families at World Compass Academy. So thank you.
Thank you,
very
Ms.
much.
Whiteley. Kelly DeBaca, and if I'm butchering your name, I apologize.
It's okay, everybody does.
Okay, and after Kelly is Heather O'Mara.
Hi, Kelly Tabaka.
Okay.
Also in support of World Compass Academy. I'm also on the School Accountability Committee since its inception. My students also were in the first kindergarten and preschool class of the school, and we have been with it since and have seen many changes, and most recently the most positive changes amongst our administration. And I just wanted to share that when in 2016 on our school performance framework, our school scored a 61, and under the awesome guidance of our amazing administration and curriculum changes, we are now scoring a 74 and will continue to grow. And we have seen so much positive change come to our school, and it is because of our awesome administration team. And thank you for hopefully renewing our charter.
Very good. Thanks,
you.
Ms. Tavaga. Thank you. Heather O'Mara.
Hi, thank you all. I'm Heather O'Mara, I'm the CEO of Hope, and I'm here not to talk about the UIP, which is coming up later, but I'm here to thank the community of Douglas County. Hope does a program called Families in Need, and we ask for Hope Angels. And we provide Christmas for 500 students. And it's an amazing, amazing program. But what I really want to thank is the Douglas County School District community who supported 75 of our students. And that's from the administrators and the individual schools. And it's just an amazing, I guess, example of community. And as a Douglas County resident, I'm just proud to be part of the community. And it touches my heart when I walk into our conference room and I see Christmas for 500 kids who wouldn't have it otherwise. So thank you to all the staff here who support what we do and support our kids. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Mara. All right. This brings a close to our public session. We'll look forward to hearing more about WCA as well as our other charters that are up for renewal later on in our agenda. Next on our agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Tucker.
Well,
It came up earlier than usual, I
Well,
know.
it came up early, a little off guard, almost speechless, but I'm going to be brief, and that's going to leave many of you speechless. Again, Heather sort of talked about it, the benevolence and the giving of not only our school community, but our community in general. It touches my heart, not just during this season, but during the entire season as I go out to all of our schools here in the district and see those types of activities going on and the dedication. And speaking of dedication, I want to thank our O&M department, Matt Van Dusen, and certainly Rich Cosgrove for their work last night. At about this time last night, we discovered at Douglas County High School that a small water main had broken late at night, and our people worked all the way up until midnight, heroically trying to get that water main fixed. They even asked a contractor to come out, but the contractor was not able to come out until this morning. But by this afternoon, the water main is repaired, and we will have school at Douglas County High School. Is that correct, Rich? That is correct. That's my report.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Tucker. And I was just corrected, I have an older version of the agenda, so mine was out of order, so my apologies. Thank you for that report.
Yeah, it was a way to get me done early.
We also, as Dr. Tucker mentioned, Rich Cosgrove, we want to recognize Rich and all of our operations and maintenance crew that were up all night trying to get this thing fixed. Rich is working on a couple of hours of sleep maybe at best right now. So I hope that you go home tonight. I hope Dr. Tucker will give you permission to go home if there's nothing else on this agenda that is needed, because I know you've been up late, as well as Stacy Rader.
Yeah,
I would just
absolutely, yeah.
recognize Stacy as well,
Yes.
who's been up trying to
Communications
decide when to push the button, just tell everybody to, guess what, no school. So anyway, hats off to you guys as well as your departments, because I know this is what we stress out about, and you guys are the ones that lose sleep over it, so we're truly grateful. So next, I believe on the agenda is the adoption of the consent agenda. We have 3 items on the consent agenda, including appointment of new members to the Fiscal Oversight Committee that are filling existing vacancies. We also have on our consent agenda item 2 IGAs, 2 intergovernmental agreements that involve our school marshal program with the town of Parker, as well as on behalf of the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. Is there a motion to adopt our consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Meek, seconded by Graziano. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. Chancho Shore.
Aye.
Graziano.
Aye.
Holtzman.
Aye.
Lung.
Aye.
Meek.
Aye.
Ray. Aye. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the joint motion agenda, which involves our minutes from our last meeting. Is there a motion?
I move that we accept the minutes.
Second.
Motion made by Holtzman, seconded by Graziano. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Chancho Shore.
Aye.
Graziano.
Aye.
Holtzman.
Aye.
Lung.
Aye.
Meek.
Aye.
Ray, aye. Those pass unanimously. Our next several items are part of our study action items tonight. We will begin with the Priority Improvement Plan hearing for Hope Online. And there's really 3 steps to this. Not only will we hear a presentation about their Priority Improvement Plan and their UIP, but we also will have a public hearing tonight for anyone that wants to speak regarding that. That is required by statute, specifically CRS 2232-142-2C, that we offer a public hearing whenever a school is placed on improvement plan. So we'll begin with a presentation. Mr. Windsor, I don't know if you're going to do the introductions or if Mrs. O'Mara or who's starting, but whomever it is, come on down. Mr. Reynolds. I should have, by default, said Mr. Reynolds. I apologize.
That's okay. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. You started off very well by kind of giving the perspective of why we're here, but I wanted to review that for everyone so that we have perspective on why we're here. So going back to the Education Accountability Act of 2009, which asks the Colorado Department of Education to review the performance of all of our schools, and to make recommendations to the State Board of Education determining the plan type based on their performance. The performance is based on a couple of key factors, including academic achievement, academic growth, and post-secondary workforce readiness for high schools. This data set comes together and is collected in a school performance framework, and that is used to determine the performance of schools. These measures are identified and the performance indicators are set by our State Board of Education, which they do change. In January, I will be providing an additional summary about that change that just happened this last fall. But for now, they're stable. These are the data points that are used for each of the different indicators. So for academic achievement, it's English, math, science on CMAS. And then in high school, it's the College Board suite of assessments, including PSAT and SAT. For academic growth, it's also CMAS for ELA and math, and then for high school, it's PSAT and SAT. And for high schools only, post-secondary workforce readiness includes such things as SAT, dropout, graduation, and matriculation rates. That data comes together and goes through a process to generate an overall rating. These are the ratings that are available for both schools and districts. So for schools, which is our focus tonight, you have performance improvement, priority improvement, and turnaround are the 4 general ones. There's also an indicator that discusses whether or not we meet the federal guidelines for participation. That does not impact their performance, but it is something we have to indicate just for federal purposes. Specifically, as President Ray just pointed out, for schools that are either in priority improvement or turnaround, it's required that there is more work that needs to be done with the Unified Improvement Plan, including holding a public hearing. That must occur at least 30 days after notifying public. I'll show a timeline in just a second to put these 30 days timeframes in line. The local school board must adopt this priority improvement or turnaround plan prior to being submitted to the state. And that adoption must occur prior to January 15th. This is the general timeline. On the top, I put the general timeline that all schools must go through. These are identified both in statute and the rules. So the first thing that must occur is in August, the data is released, or the school performance framework. It's released as a preliminary so that people have an opportunity to see their performance from the previous year. After that's released, schools have 30 days to notify their parents that they are either priority improvement or turnaround. There must also be a hearing that happens at least 30 days after that notification. And once the local board has a chance to adopt the program, it must be submitted by January 15th. I've added a few dates for Hope on the bottom in terms of what they've done. They will also discuss that in more detail in just a minute. And with that, I'm going to turn that over to them for them to give a presentation of their Unified Improvement Plan, and I'm going to turn it over to Heather.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds.
Hi, thanks everybody again. I am actually going to introduce Heidi Shaver, who's Hope's Director of Curriculum, and she's going to do our presentation as she spent countless hours on our UIP. But before I do that, I want to make sure to acknowledge the Douglas County staff who has been incredible to work with, Matt and Ellen, Danny and Laura, as we really work to revise our UIP for Hope Elementary, as well as our SAC chair, Tony Brown, is in the back, and Hope's governing board, and our board president, Kim Rossi, is in here somewhere. So really, thank you everybody for your support of Hope and Hope Elementary. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Heidi.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening. I am pleased to be here to talk about our major improvement strategies that provide the framework and foundation for our Unified Improvement Plan. Some things that we know already about Hope is the amount of time we've been in existence, which is since 2005 and 2006 school year. Currently, we are operating at the elementary level with 11 learning centers in 8 different Colorado school districts. And we focus really on attendance, affiliation, achievement, and aspiration, which is the baseline that we begin with our students. So when we start and look at this, I think it's really important to understand why students choose Hope and why parents choose to bring their children to us. And that allows us to see a little bit better why we do what we do and why we've put our different strategies into next year's plan. So overall, what we see is an overall arching pattern of students that come to us feel connected to their community, they feel connected to the school, and they feel that it's a safe place, that they get the attention they need so that they can truly focus on learning and their academics. When we look at this, we can see that this also transpires into higher re-enrollment numbers. We're continuing to see this increase every year. And from last school year to this, we had a 75% re-enrollment rate, which just justifies that students and parents are happy with what they are getting at Hope. Overall, there's a 3-year trend data that we've provided for you in regards to satisfaction rates of parents and students. And this past year, we conducted a staff survey as well, and the overwhelming trend is very high levels of satisfaction with attendance, achievement, where students are at, how the individualized attention they get at Hope, and for the staff members, the pride they feel in making a difference in the lives of the students that we teach. All of the detailed survey questions and responses are provided within your slide deck as well as within this year's UIP, looking at 3-year trend data. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but know it's there for your reference. So Hope's SPF is not the whole story, as we've seen. We are not going to argue that our achievement data needs to improve, but as we look at this, we can see that we have continued to improve. And making growth from 2010, where we were at 25, all the way now this year to being at 39.5 gains. And from starting in 2016, they had an SPF score of 37.3. They moved up to 40.6 in 2017, to 45.9 in 2018, and last year their score was 52.3, which moved them out of priority improvement. So my point that I'm trying to make here is that we really believe in sustainable change over time, and we know that we can do it with the elementary because we've shown that we could do it with the middle school. Last spring, our score was 39.5, which is 2.5 points away from being in the improvement level. If we look at our individual data related to achievement and growth, we know that our achievement data is not where it needs to be. We know that we are needing to put things in place. And on the other hand, we look specifically at growth because what we find is that a lot of our students, large numbers of our population, come in well below grade level. So what we do at Hope is to focus on where they're at and make strategic decisions and put interventions in place so that we can move them as far as we can, filling the gaps that they come to us with. Looking at 3-year trend data, we see that we're pretty stable. We're not seeing huge amounts of growth. But as you will see shortly, we are demonstrating growth with our subgroups, and thus this has made us make some changes in what we're going to be doing in our improvement plan for next year and the following year. We really strive to have large participation in our testing, and from last year you can see 99.6 in ELA, 100 in math, and 100% in science. 3-year trend data shows that that's been consistent. As far as Mr. Reynolds spoke to some things that the district's done, we've been involved in gathering information and providing our different stakeholder groups time and opportunities to review our data, to look at potential root causes, and to support us in developing our UIP. Some of our key players in doing this has been our Hope Governing Board, our Hope SAC Committee, which involves parents, community members, staff members, and then we've looked at some data and reviews from the state review panel tours. And then, of course, our Douglas County team, as Heather had mentioned, has been extremely supportive this year. Some of their feedback has been it allowed us to really revise our UIP draft so that it would be a much stronger program moving forward and one that has a lot more cohesion amongst the improvement strategies. So at the elementary level, we utilize some key programs for core instruction. For English language arts, we utilize core knowledge language arts, reading A to Z leveled readers for small group guided reading. And then this is the first year that we have begun and put in place iReady as our adaptive online curriculum, and we're as well this year with iReady. And after a careful review of a variety of offline math programs last year, our committee decided to pilot Envisions Math. So that is being piloted this year, K-8 at 2 of our largest learning centers, and it involves a total of 425 students. So we are evaluating that program as it's being implemented, and we are going to be looking at the data in comparison to the Engage New York math program data to make determinations as to whether or not this is a more solid program for our students and to better meet their needs. So again, Hope recognizes and celebrates student differences. And as a result of that, I want to focus on a couple things from last year's SPF that shows the difference that we are making for the students that fall into our diverse learner categories. So first of all, for our EL learner population, which at the elementary school actually makes up over half of our student body, almost half, 48%. As far as those who were tested, of our EL learners tested in grades 3 through 4, they made a point gain in their growth up to the 51 being the median growth percentile, which moved them into the MEETS rating. This rating is, we're very proud of it because we focused a great deal of time and energy in professional development and putting in supports to meet the needs of our learners who come in with minimal or no English acquisition. In addition, the SPF notes that 65% of our kindergarten through 5th grade EL learners are on track to proficiency. That percentage is comparable to DPS, Weld County, and Adams 12. So even though we're a school rather than a district, that percentage rate we're very proud of. In addition, during last school year, 15% of our second language learners were redesignated from EL learners to fully English proficient. Another subgroup that we have been focused on in the past has been our students with disabilities. Although this is a low number of our population because we do not have complete full access to supporting students at all levels of disabilities, this subgroup also improved their growth rating and moved up from a does not meet to an approaching rating in the 2019 SBF. Lastly, our minority students moved up a couple percentiles in achievement with English language arts and also moved their percentage, their median growth percentile rate up 3 points from 2018, which allowed them to maintain their approaching rating. So when we look at the big picture, it doesn't always show the small pockets which really compromise and make up our student body of hope that we look at across all of it. So taking this into consideration and looking at where we've been in the past, we have decided to focus this year on 3 different major improvement strategies to help us to improve not only growth, but also to move forward with academic achievement. So this first strategy is engaging learners in higher level and more rigorous English language arts instruction. The second is to do the same with more rigorous math instruction. And finally, we're going to find ways that we can differentiate instruction so support can be given out and provided by staff to better support and meet the needs of our diverse learner group, which involves scaffolding instruction, filling in learning gaps that they have, and providing alternative ways for them to demonstrate their proficiency and their learning. So as we look at how the benchmarks fit into these major improvement strategies, some key things that we're going to be focused on in the coming year to meet these major improvement strategies. First of all, we're going to be focusing instruction on higher level and more rigorous tasks, as well as including additional writing research projects and supporting students in using multiple sources of information when they are writing to prompts and answering questions or developing research papers. Secondly, we are going to be utilizing, fully implementing our iReady online curriculum. As you all know, with Douglas County, they implemented this as well, and it's not something you just in a heartbeat implement and everything's smooth. So we're working out some kinks and moving pretty quickly on it, but we want to really use all of the pieces of the iReady program so that we can best meet the needs of our students. And the nice thing about iReady is it's going to correlate, it correlates nicely to both our CKLA curriculum as well as Engage New York and the Envisions math curriculum. So teachers can look at that and identify what lessons students struggled with in their core curriculum, and they can push out additional practice opportunities or pull off additional targeted small group lessons within iReady that's going to meet and match that same component or standard that they've been working on. As far as the second benchmark and what we're going to be doing or the second strategy, what we're going to be implementing as far as benchmarks, we are going to be utilizing and looking at more closely those rigorous tasks in mathematics and making sure that we're giving adequate time and coverage to the Colorado standards that are more than just the rote mathematics development. So understanding some key pieces of math with mathematical reasoning and being able to communicate and justify your math in a variety of different ways. We'll be utilizing that online programming of iReady more consistently, providing professional development to ensure the implementation of effective math instruction is occurring in every classroom. We're going to be utilizing data to review that, to use and design targeted and meaningful instruction for whole groups and small groups. And then we're going to continue with our math coaching cycles with a more diligent focus on rigor and improving overall math instruction. Our final improvement strategy has to do with supporting our efforts to differentiate instruction for our diverse learners at Hope. And in order to do this, we're going to be setting up a professional learning community structure that you will see in a moment is already in place this year, but we're going to refine it. And we'll be utilizing that to review our data and use that to guide instruction, determine grouping of students, and identify intervention or acceleration activities or programming that will best meet their needs. In addition, we're going to be looking at full implementation of a resource booklet that is in the process of being developed and is starting to be tried out this next quarter coming up. And that is looking at some SIOP strategies to help our second language learners, as well as those learners that have just limited language or communication skills, to help them to better access our curriculum and demonstrate their knowledge. We'll be collaborating as a staff with Hope staff members and the members of our learning centers to implement differentiated instruction for our students with disabilities. And we're going to be putting into place and continuing to grow with and utilize growth plans for our students who are on IPs, read plans who are identified as having significant reading deficiencies, and then of course our EL plans to support our second language learners. The whole piece of this is using data, making decisions based on the data, and then monitoring the students' progress so that we can see, is it working, is it not, where are the adjustments that we need to make. The last piece I'm going to share with you is the things that we already have in place. We started last spring to look at things that we knew needed to change in our curriculum and in our instruction to better support students to gain achievement scores and to continue to grow in growth. So in regards to major improvement strategy 1, we've already done a very careful review of our offline curriculum and our online curriculum, thus the change to iReady. We have adapted our pacing guide for our offline curriculum in order to make adequate space and room so teachers can focus on higher level skills and tasks. We are developing our writing research projects and piloting those in schools this year. Then we will adapt them and do full implementation on those next year. We began by offering some professional development in the areas of writing and supporting students in using multiple sources to take notes and create responses. And then I mentioned the iReady online curriculum is has started to be implemented full bore K-12 for our diagnostic and K-8 for the progress monitoring and the adaptive programming. In regards to major improvement strategy number 2, again, we have our iReady pieces, but the current offline curriculum was reviewed. We compared it to other curriculum, and we made a selection of the Envisions program to pilot because we felt that it was going to be a stronger match for some of our students. And so we're piloting that now to determine whether or not that's going to increase our students' achievement and serve the purposes of meeting all of our groups. And then we also adjusted the math pacing guide to allow for, again, greater focus on higher level thinking skills, tasks related to the justification, the reasoning related to mathematics. And we have embedded coaching cycles that we continue to refine how those are implemented, for how long they're implemented, and what the focus is. Finally, our last strategy to look at the differentiation of instruction. We have assigned our staff to working with our diverse groups of students, and we've done it in such a way as to maximize the talents and expertise of those who we have working in the field. We began in fall setting up a professional learning community structure, and it's in place at every learning center and is being conducted. Those data discussions are taking place on a monthly basis right now, and we're providing support in how to identify what data to look at and using some planning agenda maps, if you will, so that they can plan instruction for students. So we have that in place and look forward to refining that more. The SIAP booklet, we've done strategy training with staff and focused on how we can support our second language learners, as well as those who come to us with less than optimal language development. And we have put those in place, but now we're collecting these and putting them in a more friendly booklet that can be easily accessed and easily implemented in planning and in instruction in the classroom. Our READ and EL plans, they've been in place and have been developed. They're being implemented. We're monitoring them. We're updating them as we get new data, and as students achieve their goals, we're setting new ones. And our intervention programs are being implemented for targeted instruction. So that is the nuts and bolts of where we are headed and why we're planning on heading there. So I would just like to see if you have questions for us regarding our plan.
Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Shaver. First of all, for the presentation, whoops, is there? Oh, are we okay?
I think we're okay.
Okay. All right. First of all, I want to thank you. Board directors and public, just want to remind all of us that this is not a renewal application for Hope Online. This is really specifically to look at their plan for improvement. And I would even say specifically, Mrs. Shaver sent, or those last several slides, 4 or 5 slides, that really talk about the benchmark of when they implement certain strategies to improve their students' performance. Those are the things we need to be focused on. So just a reminder that if we have questions tonight, we should focus on the priority improvement plan. I do want to just say to Hope, just so you know, there's definitely a passion on this board in terms of, we had a fierce conversation at our conference last weekend about equity, and how do we make sure that we are distributing support and resources equitably as opposed to equally. And I know this is something that you folks get. You have absolutely a passion and a heart for making sure that our students that deserve and need the most rich resources possible, you have a heart for really focusing on those students. And so just so you know, that's certainly a passion this board has as well. So it always does our heart well to hear people that have that as part of their mission also. So with that, board directors, are there specific questions you would like to ask regarding the presentation? Director Chancho Shore.
Just a point of clarification for me. Did I read correctly, 89% of your students are free and reduced lunch socioeconomically?
Yes, that is accurate.
And nearly 10% of your students are homeless.
Yes, that's correct.
And I think I also read for clarification, maps and dibbles are used as other sources of data for benchmarks.
So last year we used maps. This year we switched into iReady.
Oh, okay.
Because maps allowed it, or iReady allows us to have the adaptive programming matching the diagnostic and the progress monitoring. And also, so it allowed us and moved to K-12, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Tanchashore. Directors, any other questions? Director Lung.
I'm looking at your performance improvements plan documents. Seems like your elementary school enrollment.
Can you hear him, Mrs. Shaver?
A little bit, yeah.
Sorry. I have looking at your elementary school enrollment from your documents. Seems like it will be decreased from 1,032 in school years 2017 to 18, down to around 846 in this school years. So in 2 years, you're dropping more than 20% of your enrollment in elementary school student. Is this a strategy that you're implementing to get a better score by dropping the lower performing center? I mean, a 20% drop in student in 2 years is a huge drop.
Ms. O'Mara?
That's actually purposeful. It's not purposeful by closing low-performing centers. It's purposeful by working with our directors and not focusing on enrollment and focusing on achievement. That was Hope's commitment as we looked at the challenges that we had at the elementary and middle school. How did we make sure that we focused all of our efforts on academic achievement and growth and not focused on enrollment? So that's been a purposeful change. As we've had some learning centers close, we've specifically and purposefully not recruited new learning centers to replace them so we could focus on the achievement, because as we add a new learning center, the number of resources to get a new learning center up to speed is incredible and is going to take our focus away from our work of making sure we support the students that we have.
And one of the issues to go along with that we were finding is some of our learning centers were really doing well at the middle school and high school level as far as enrollment numbers, but they had such small numbers at the elementary level that they were trying to meet the needs of kindergarten, first and second grade in all one classroom. And we determined that that's not going to be successful for our students. And so by looking at those centers that had such low numbers in enrollment and moving that out, we're able to allow for students not to be stretched in so many, we still have some one-room schoolhouse, but it's a lot level, the levels aren't as broad, and especially not at the elementary level.
The reason I'm asking, because I do not see that in the three strategy that you have present to us, of this is a way to improving your standing of elementary school, but in effect is actually implementing dropping 20% of the student in 2 years because of the reason that you stay seems to be a strategy to me, but that's not really documented by what I see over there. And
Director Lung, I would just clarify, I didn't hear that it's a strategy as much as it's a focus issue. Their focus is on their existing student population, and had they focused on recruiting, that number would be a higher number. But I think what I heard their response being is that it would not be a strategy that they would put in their improvement plan.
well, if they're focusing on the existing, populations, which in school years 2017-18 is 1,032, elementary school normally have sixth grade, so in 2 years it should not have dropped down to 846.
Right.
Right. It should, if they're focusing truly on that 1,032, that should be not increasing student. I understand, but that should be dropping 20%. I mean, we're looking at losing, almost close to 300, 200, student over there. And that's the reason I'm asking, because we're talking about strategy, and that concern me whether this is, I'm looking at further reductions of student in the upcoming years. And that's, thank you very much, for addressing my questions.
Yes, I think that covers that. Director Holtzman and then Director Meek.
Hi, Hi, thank you for the presentation. And I want to just thank the Hope staff in general for your dedication and service to these students and also to our DCSD staff. I know that you all have worked very closely and I appreciate all your work for these students. So as I look at the surveys, they're pretty remarkable. Your employees are proud to serve the students at Hope, and your parents value the education that their students are getting, and these things are very encouraging, as well as some of the subgroup improvements that you pointed out. I did have a question on the employee survey. Like I said, overwhelmingly, they're very satisfied with their work, but I noticed that the two lower percentages were in regards to the hopes providing professional development and the investment that the organization is making in their training and education. And I know that that is something that you all are focusing on. And I've seen, the great lengths you're going to try to help in that regard. So I'm just wondering what we can do or what you all can do, what supports we can give to make the employees more aware of all of those supports that you're making available to them. I mean, it's still relatively high. It's remarkably lower than the rest of the survey.
I think one of the areas we focused on has been professional development, and we focused a lot on professional development for teachers and our learning center staff. If you break into the subgroups of that employee survey, where we've missed it is with our central admin staff. And that's really where you see the numbers and the change in satisfaction. So we're working on how do we develop more opportunities for our central admin staff to get more professional development and more promotion. So if you look at the satisfaction ratings for professional development within our teaching and instruction staff, because that's been our focus, you'll see that much higher than our admin staff. But we have to focus on all of our staff and all of our dedication, and how do we make sure we manage those resources.
Very good.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Director Meek?
Sure. Thank you very much for the presentation. Could you spend just a little bit more time elaborating on your approach to literacy?
Yeah, absolutely. So we utilize a variety of different programs as far as to encompass a blended program for our students. So in the past, we have had Lexia and Reading Plus that were our online program options. Lexia being adaptive programming and Reading Plus being more tilted toward grade level. And we made the switch this year to move it to iReady because of a stronger focus, like I said, correlation to our offline curriculum, as well as a stronger correlation to Colorado State standards, and then providing some targeted learning opportunities so everything kind of blends together. So online programming, students are working on an online adaptive program on a regular basis, daily actually, with literacy as well as mathematics. And our offline curriculum is core knowledge language arts. Core Knowledge Language Arts is a really robust program. It involves two different components, one being domain instruction, which is designed to provide background knowledge, develop vocabulary, and just simply build academic literacy and social studies and science knowledge across the board. In that vein, our students are introduced to things such as, science technique things that you would see in regular science programs. They look at ancient Greek history, they look at Native American history, they look at how the heart functions, all different things, but there are trends that follow through from one grade level to another. So what students learn in kindergarten, they build upon in first and second and moving on up in the domain instruction. And then the second component of that is really the skills instruction. It looks at targeted specific skills in phonics and comprehension, phonemic awareness that are necessary and appropriate for each of the grade levels. That instruction is done generally in small group, and it's done so that we can best meet their needs by seeing how did they do on the assessment, what gaps do we need to fill. And then in addition to that, we offer guided reading, which is small group instruction using level text. So we match up a student's reading level to a text, and then we match the skills instruction that's happening either in their skills group or in the domain instruction, depending on the grade level. And we offer the opportunity for students to practice that skill with text that they can read. So the small group guided reading instruction is happening on a regular basis. So students are exposed to and practicing the skills in text that is at the reading level. And that's huge for us because some of our kids, like I mentioned, are 2 and 3 years below grade level in reading. So if we never move them back and let them practice text that's at their level to access, they're never going to truly develop those skills. So that's the other strong piece of our program. And then on top of that, we have intervention programming. We have 3 different intervention programs that we utilize at Hope, and we use them based on the needs of the students and where the best fit is. And if programming is not matching or not meeting the needs, we switch. So those are all done in small group and done with face-to-face teacher interaction. Does that answer it?
Thank you, Ms. Shaver.
Yeah.
Director Chanchashore?
Thank you. I couldn't find in your very comprehensive 74-page plan the percentage of licensed or certified teachers as compared to past years.
Yeah, I actually put that in there, so I know it's there, but
It's somewhere in the
I can't really-
74 pages, probably.
It's in the very beginning section, so I can probably.
No one can hear you.
Quickly find it. It's in the beginning section, so I
I
probably
do
can.
see that you had a plan to continue
Yeah.
their leveling of completion toward certification, but I
Yep.
don't see the numbers.
Yeah, we have numbers on that. Oh, so at the elementary level, we have 24 licensed teachers and 5 paraprofessionals that are not. At learning centers, they have 45 elementary mentors, of which 3 are licensed, 8 are currently enrolled in a BA program in education, and an additional 4 are in alternative licensure. So 12, 13, 14, 15 of the 49 are either in program, have licenses, working towards their licensure.
And how many students?
And we have a total of 846.
In the elementary
in the
program?
elementary.
So 24 teachers are licensed?
Plus the 3 additional mentors, and we actually have 2 of our paraprofessionals that are also licensed. So, yeah, I can add that all up.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Director Lung, final question. I'm
Yeah,
going to
my
open
final
up public
question
hearing.
is that to help me to decide on your implementation's benchmark, I would like to know what is the main difference between this year's benchmark versus last year's benchmark?
So in the past couple of years, we have really been focused on setting up a pipeline for our mentors to get involved in educational programs to further their education, as well as to refine how we assign staff members to learning centers. Instead of just saying every center gets 1.5 teacher and this and this and this, we did it more strategically in the past. We also looked at getting our directors and management involved in our DU turnaround program, which allowed them to develop skills, and we're continuing that this year, skills in how to develop teachers, gaining deeper knowledge on instructional practices and approaches, and evaluating staff as well. So we had that focus as well. And this year we've made a shift into what are we going to do now that we've got some of these foundational pieces in place? What are we going to do to be more strategically focused on the academics? And so looking at, when we go through our centers, some of the things that people were highlighting was they're teaching, they're using the curriculum, but it seems to be low level. And our students are not performing well, especially on the higher order standards of the Colorado math and literacy. So the mathematical reasoning is low, our writing scores are low, and the only way we're gonna make that happen is to look at our curriculum and put greater focus on those higher level standards and provide the coaching and support so that the instruction pushes kids to those levels. Because we know our students can do it, we just haven't had the focus there to push our instructors to get our kids there.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. O'Mara, Ms. Shaver. Mr. Windsor, Mr. Reynolds, are there any other revisions that are pending regarding this UIP that we've seen tonight? Or is this the final that we are to be approving?
Great question. So the approval process, the way that the timeline works is we're submitting it January 15th. The state also has to do their own review using their criteria. So they will be reviewing it from that January 15th up until April 15th. So there may or may not be changes as directed by the Department of Education regarding their plan. So I would expect that there's going to be some modifications once they do their review as well. There's also next month, as you may be aware, there's also a meeting with the State Board of Education which may necessitate further changes in the plan as well. So I would expect to see some revisions.
As far as staff is concerned at this point, though, this is the best in terms of recommendation for this kind of a plan. I mean, I guess I want to understand that staff's consulted with Hope and that you feel like that the strategies that they've outlined are effective strategies according to what you guys know about Hope Online.
Yeah, so in this review, what we did is we used the criteria and we provided you all the quality criteria rubric for unified improvement plans. We used that lens to review the plan. We did not get into the specific details of the improvement strategies themselves because we also know that they have a plan that the State Board of Education has dictated that they do. So with that in mind, we've looked specifically at the criteria based on the Unified Improvement Plan rubric. And we gave feedback regarding that criteria. We also reviewed it in light of that Pathways plan as well. So yes, I would say staff, after our review and the feedback we've provided, I can certainly have Danny
You're
provide
getting
that
head
as well.
nods behind you, so yeah.
So, yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. All right. So we will, at this time, open up a public hearing, which is a requirement from statute CRS 2232-142-2C for anyone that would like to speak specifically to the priority improvement plan presentation that you've heard tonight and the strategies that the Hope staff has presented for us in terms of things that they're working on. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to step forward and make any comments during this public hearing time? And if so, please come forward. Oh, I thought someone was coming forward. Oh, all right. Sorry. You moved. All right. Anyone else? Okay. So seeing that no one is coming forward, we will close public hearing at this time. Board directors, our next agenda item then is to react to the improvement plan that's been presented tonight. Since we've all asked our questions, I will actually have us do a motion first, and then I will allow discussion after the motion's been made. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to accept the HOPE's Unified Improvement Plan as written.
Okay, so there's been a motion to adopt the UIP and the priority improvement plan as written. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Holtzman made the motion, seconded by Chancho Shore. Is there other discussion, board directors, regarding this plan? I would just add again, I think Mr. Reynolds alluded to this too. We approved and renewed Hope's Online's charter for 2 years. And so basically, we approved a resolution that had some very specific conditions about some very specific benchmarks that they would have to meet during that 2-year renewal period. So that's really what we are beholding to in terms of our accountability, that Hope continues to make progress and the trajectory of student performance is seen. So I would just add that caveat, but as Mr. Reynolds said, the State Department also is involved in weighing in regarding their improvement as well. So that will also be happening next month. Director Lung, any discussion?
Well, I have a concern about this plan because I don't seem to see a much differ from the one that I see last year. And we noticed that since 2016, the score is pretty much flat. So I just look at that, I don't see it go far enough. And also, my concern is 2 years dropping 20% of their student, 200 students left, the programs, that is not maintaining the current student. There is some reason they're gone. And I don't seem to hear a very good answer and see why that many students, left. And I hope that is not a strategy of, anyway, I don't want to speculate. And so that's my second, concern on this plan, because it does not providing a way to stabilize their student populations. And also, it do not address the senior management. This is the ninth years of having hopes on the performance improvement plan. However, they have changed their board. They have revamped their teachers' programs. They have coach center that is underperformed. But I have not seen all this year they address the issues of the senior management, the head of school. If I have a school that is continuously under that, I think we will ask, why don't we replace the principal? If I have a school district that's underperformed like this, we will ask, why don't we replace the superintendents? However, I have not seen that in this plan.
Okay, other discussion items regarding this proposal? And again, I should have prefaced this earlier. We certainly have the ability to either approve it, delay it, or recommend revisions. The motion on the table right now is to approve it, but that certainly could have been, if Director Lung, if you felt strongly about a revision to their plan, that would certainly be a motion that could have also been made as well, just to clarify. Any other discussion, though, regarding the motion, which is to approve their priority improvement plan? Any other discussion? Director Holtzman?
So I understand Director Lung's concerns. I guess to me, this is directly about the improvement plan. And this board approved renewal of HOPE in 2018 through 2020. And some of the issues you're discussing, I think, might be more relevant to that discussion. But as a board, we've made a commitment to HOPE, to support them. And I'd like to see us do that. And I'm not the expert in developing these plans, but I am confident in our staff's ability to help draft them and evaluate them. And what we've heard from them is that this is the plan that they think will best help them continue to improve. So I would still advocate that we approve the plan.
Okay, so motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. Chancho Shore?
Aye.
Graziano?
I'm just going to add, I support Director Lung's comments, but I do support moving forward with the plan, so aye.
Holtzman?
Aye.
Lung?
No, because of the comment I make.
Meek?
Aye.
Ray? Aye. So that motion passes 5-1 to approve and adopt the priority improvement plan for Hope Online. All right, very good, thank you. Next on our agenda, and for those of you, I apologize for many of our parents that are waiting to hear about the renewal presentation. Just so you know, we probably will take a quick break after these next two items. The reason these items are in the order they are is because these are action items that we need to make action tonight on, and then we will move into the study discussion with your renewals. So just to kind of give you a little bit of a benchmark about when we will be talking about the charter schools, that should be probably closer to 8 o'clock. So next on our agenda is to discuss the fiscal year 2019 audit and comprehensive annual financial report, often referred to as CAFR, and also looking at the 2019 Colorado Department of Education audit accreditation report, which is an item that we are being asked to consider and approved tonight. So with that, Chief Financial Officer Scott Smith.
Thank you, Director Ray. This is our audit presentation for the fiscal year that ended roughly 6 months ago. So when we talk about the decisions that were made, we have to go back 18 months. I know it's that confusing time of year, excuse me, where we're talking about 3 different years. The year that ended, we're talking about current year sometimes, and then we're even setting the stage for next year. So just want to remind everyone that we are looking into the past. I do have some folks here with me who will be speaking. We have members from our Fiscal Oversight Committee. We have our external auditors, and then Janice Slicener, who's our Director of Finance, is the certified public accountant on our team, so she'll be walking through some of the CAFR results as well. So looking back at the 2018-19 year in review, put the Board of Education end statements up here around financial well-being, because this really speaks to what's in the audit and what's in the CAFR, and being transparent with our funds and being good stewards of the funds that the taxpayers entrust with us. And we take that responsibility very seriously. And these end statements really speak to that work and all of the work that goes in to developing the annual audit. If we look back to the time period before the 18-19 school year started, we made some significant investments from the general fund. We invested pretty heavily in employee pay increases and employee benefits. We also saw increased investments in special education staffing as well as increases to school budgets as well. This was the budget at the beginning of the year. When Jana gets to the end of the presentation, she'll show you that the financial results reflect these investments. But we were also fortunate to pass the mill levy override during this time period, and we provided retroactive pay increases to our employees to the tune of $17 million. The next 2 items we've talked about a lot, but just to refresh people's memories, we collected the full amount of the mill levy override in this year, but there's no practical way to spend that entire amount the first year. A perfect example is hiring 85 new counselors. Even if we could have hired them all immediately, they only would have been employed for half the year. So while there was $7 million allocated to counselors, we spent about $1 million in that first 6 months on the counselors that we were able to hire. We also, in the entire mill levy, had about $9 million for school-level funding and career and technical education. We spent just under $3 million of that in the first year as well. And then we did pass through 100% of the per pupil mill levy amount to our charter schools, and that was retroactive back to the beginning of the school year as well, so the full amount was shared with our charters. So to discuss the results, I would like to invite the chair of our Fiscal Oversight Committee, Mr. Dilpreet Jammu.
Thank you very much, CFO Scott, and President Ray. Thank you. On behalf of Fiscal Oversight, I've got the easiest job here this evening. I want to thank you for approving our new members. As you know, our committee is all about bringing on board individuals with financial expertise as well as real-world experience, and we do that in order to be able to fulfill our fiduciary responsibility to the board. And so this year what we did was we actually appointed an audit subcommittee under the guidance of Ms. Judy Dinkle. She's the one who led this effort. I'm going to ask her to just come up and speak a few words. She's got about 15 years of specialized government and large corp type accounting expertise, and she's the accounting manager for Douglas County as well, and she is going to be our subject matter expert and speaking on behalf of FOC.
Very good. Good evening, welcome.
Hello, I'm Judy Dinkle, and I was chosen to chair the audit subcommittee, and we just started this, so it's kind of a beginning effort for us. In future years, we're hoping to have 4 meetings a year where we will meet with staff and the external auditors. We'll have an audit planning meeting, an interim update, a final meeting, and then any additional meetings as needed for internal controls or other matters. This year, we only had the final meeting, and we did meet with the external auditors and with staff, and we would like to commend the staff of Douglas County School District for their professionalism, cooperation, and especially their attention to detail. I would recommend that the board accept the CAFR as presented and consider the audit of the 2018-19 fiscal year to be successfully complete. Do you have any other questions for me?
Not this time, but thank you for that recommendation, yes.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education. My name is Paul Niedermuller with Clifton Larson Allen, your external auditing firm. And as mentioned previously, we have met with both the Financial Oversight Committee and the Audit Committee, and we just wanted to bring to you our responsibility in terms of your role as the Board Oversight and the Board of Education. We did issue a clean opinion in all material respects, as mentioned previously. We did not have any disagreements with management, all of the things that we would be required to report to you. So all of those were very positive, and just wanted to remind the board of our responsibility to make sure that we communicate any type of difficulties that we encounter during the audit process. And that's the time that we've taken today to be able to communicate that directly to the Board of Education. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, directors. I'm Janice Slicer. I'm the Director of Finance. I'm just going to go through some audit highlights from 2019. First of all, I want to remind you the structure of the CAFR. It's different than what you see on a quarterly and the budget basis. I'm going to start at the bottom of the slide and work my way up. The fund level financials are what you're used to seeing from the budget team on their quarterly reports and what you talk about at the budget. When those get combined, they're called the governmental financial statements. Neither one of these have long-term assets or long-term liabilities associated with it. Those long-term assets would be buildings, land, buses, those kinds of things. Examples of long-term debt or long-term liabilities would be our general obligation debt, para liability, which we'll talk about here in a minute. When we add those long-term assets and liabilities, that's what we call the government-wide financial statements. This is the only place that you will see that. These are the results of the government-wide, so again, that's that final top layer of financials. You'll see a negative net position of about $1 billion. The reason for that is that para liability that we'll talk about. If we did not have to post that, we would actually have a positive net position of $571 million. That does not mean that we have that much sitting in our cash accounts to push out to our schools and to our teachers. This, again, includes those long-term assets, so there are non-spendable forms such as land, buildings, buses, those types of things. So let's talk about para just a minute because it is a very different liability than we're used to seeing. Remember that the para board is in charge of investing those funds, so the return on those investments. And then the legislature is actually in charge of the benefits that we push out to our retirees and those contributions that both employees and employers contribute into these para plans. We cannot contribute more, we cannot contribute less. This is what it is, and we just record the balance that they give us. So you'll see that the the net pension liability is the actuarial assumption of what's gonna have to go out to retirees. How much more is that than the assets that are in the coffers? So that number is $17 billion. It's a big number. All schools record a piece of that. Our piece is 5.6% of that $17 billion, or almost $1 billion. It's a big number to post. The number last year was about $32 billion, so it's a big improvement. A big piece of that was legislative changes that were made during the year, which Scott has talked about a few times with you all. A piece of that is $225 million that the state contributes directly into the plan, starting for the 18-19 school year, or for the 2018 calendar year, actually. And they'll continue doing that. So now I'm down in the fund level. Again, Scott talked about that salaries and benefits are where we were driving our dollars. This graph illustrates where those actual dollars went. You'll see the 2019, which is the red line, is significantly higher in the salaries and benefit line items compared to 2018, and the rest remains pretty steady. This graph is that same information, just cut a little bit differently. So this is by program. Instruction is in the classroom, and then as you go to the right, it gets further from the classroom. So you'll see that most of those dollars were driven towards instruction once again, and that number actually went up. This is the accreditation report, which is actually the only report that you all are required to approve for us. This is given to CDE on an annual basis, and we do combine our charter schools in with this reporting, so it's the district and the charter schools together. The district has met all of those requirements. There were 2 items on the charter schools that did not meet those requirements. One was ongoing deficit for Hope Online, and the detailed information is in your packets on that. The second one are 4 schools exceeded their appropriations. This is not their fault this year. So remember that $225 million that I said the state contributed directly to para? Scott talked about a month or two ago that we were notified 60 days after year end, after budgets could no longer be modified, that we have to record our piece of revenue and expenditures. Some charter schools do not have enough excess in their appropriations to cover that excess. So that's the reason why on those. Questions?
All right, well, first of all, thank you, Mr. Jamu. Thank you also to the FOC and all your work and input from a citizen's perspective, but we also appreciate Jana, Scott. You guys are again, rock stars in our feelings up here because you are always working with moving targets and, you know, little surprises like, oh, by the way, you're almost $1 billion deficit because now we're going to make you be responsible for the para liability. So I really am truly grateful for our business services and financial departments. So just first of all, I want to say hats off to you as well as our fiscal oversight committee. It always does our heart well when we have our auditors stand up here and say, all is well. So we appreciate hearing from you as well to say that there really is nothing, there's no anomalies or no concerns that we need to be alerted to with regards to looking back at how we've allocated funding. So again, thank you to the entire team. Directors, any questions regarding the presentation we just heard, specifically on the audit report? Any questions? No questions. This is a first. It must have been a perfect presentation. Congratulations on that. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, almost. Director Meek, go ahead.
Can we go back to the slide, the one that was showing the money that went into counselors?
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure I was understanding. So we total 7 million allocated for counselors, but we only expended $1 million because of putting them in place.
Correct. So we didn't budget to spend any of the mill levy money until we knew it had passed. And at that time, we started recruiting counselors, and we were successful in hiring some at the elementary level, changing the ratio at the high school level. Jobs got posted. This year, you will see the full spend in the current year that we're in, but for that 6-month period, there was a limited amount of spend related to counselors.
So where did the $6 million go?
So it is in our fund balance.
Okay.
So our plan is that the money that's allocated from 5A that was not spent in the first year will be allocated only to the priorities outlined in 5A, but it will be over the next couple years. So a perfect example is counselors. We had built the plan around a 250-to-1 ratio at secondary schools. It turns out when you divide our enrollment by 250, 6.4 counselors isn't incredibly helpful. So we worked with our secondary schools and we rounded all of those allocations up to the next full-time equivalent for our positions. So the way we're able to fund that is by drawing the fund balance that we didn't spend the first year in order to supplement those budgets in the years to come.
Thank you.
Director Chacha-Shore?
Would you go back to the slide that showed the para contributions at the very end?
That one?
And then there's 4 schools. There was a
Oh, yes.
slide where it showed 4 schools. So spending it, ongoing deficit, so hope, and then spending in excess of appropriations, meaning the para adjustment, and that's 5 different charter schools, right?
I believe
Including
that's-
Hope.
Is Hope in the second group? No. So yes, 5.
So
total.
5 total. And is that ever recuperated in any way?
Sure. So we would have the same issue, except we have enough room because we appropriate the school carryover, even though it traditionally doesn't get spent. So to give you an example, if we could forecast expenditures perfectly, and let's say we budget $500 million, we requested authority for $500 million, and the board approved it, that's our appropriation for the year. What happened after the year ended is para came back to us and said, you need to book $8 million of revenue and $8 million of expenditures. So it doesn't affect how much money we have, but the board didn't give me the authority to spend $508 million. There was only 500. So that's what these charter schools ran into, is that they had to book their proportionate share of the revenue and expenditure related to the direct funding of para from the state, but they didn't have enough room because they didn't know it was coming, right? We were informed 60 days after the fiscal year closed, so their budget was so tight that their board hadn't previously given them authorization to spend that. Even though they didn't spend it, they didn't ask to spend it, they were told they had to record it as an expenditure and record the revenue as well. So it doesn't affect their overall financial position.
Director Lund?
Well, our FOC truly did a wonderful job, and we just passed the motions to appoint 6 new members. So if I may I ask those 6 new members to stand up and are they still there?
If you're a member with the FOC,
Yeah,
I see a hand in the back. Anybody else?
Can you please stand up, because I want to acknowledge how much work that all of you did for the school district. And we have a high quality group of people this time around to get approved. And unfortunately, it was in the consent agenda. I was not able to just make this compliment during that time. But I do want to say thank you very much on behalf of the school district. You help us a lot. Thank you.
All right, very good. Any other questions for Mr. Smith or the team? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 2019 CDE audit accreditation report.
Move to approve the CDE 2019 accreditation report.
Second.
Motion made by Graziano, seconded by Lung. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. Chancho Shore.
Aye.
Graziano.
Aye.
Holtzman.
Aye.
Lung.
Aye.
Meek.
Aye.
Ray. Aye. Passes unanimously. We also have another financial issue on our agenda, which is the reason we had to come out to this Thursday night meeting, is because we have this issue that gets presented to us at this time of year with a very short window of opportunity for us to take action. So it's not Mr. Smith's fault, well, we won't say whose fault it is, but Mr. Smith is here to present to us regarding the mill levy certification. Mr. Smith.
Directors, it's my pleasure to introduce Director of Budget Colleen Doan, who will be presenting the information on the 2019-2020 mill levy certification.
Thank you. Mrs. Doan, good evening.
Good evening. So the mill levy certification has to occur every year in December, and this is for the taxes that will be collected in 2020. So for those of you who've been here before, you should be hopefully familiar with this process. So we actually have 4 different types of tax bills here in Douglas County School District. So the first one is our School Finance Act. That is a fixed mill. Then we have 5 different overrides. So those were all passed at different points in time. And so the most recent one added just last year, the 2018 mill levy override. We have our bond redemption tax. So that is to pay off the debt service associated with our bonds that come due. And then we have an abatement tax bill as well. So we are recommending to the Board of Education that you certify tonight a total of 43.839 mills. This is a decrease from the prior year. So if you look at these 4 different categories year over year, you'll see that the School Finance Act remained fixed. That is a fixed mill. The mill levy override decreases. That is because it's a fixed dollar. So as the assessed value increases, the mill rate drops. The abatement is provided to us by the county. So that is based on the calculation that they say it will be. And then our bond redemption is held flat as well. As promised to the voters, it was a no tax rate increase. We have provided here for you a history of the impact of our tax bills on the average resident. So this is based upon the average home value for Douglas County School District. So you can see the assessed value has continued to grow over time. And then at the recommendation of the Fiscal Oversight Committee, we are showing that same time period for the comparable business value. So if you had the same building that was classified as a business versus a residential home, you can see the difference in the taxes for businesses. And it's the same tax rate, it's that they have a different assessed value because of the assessment rate. And so with that, that is our presentation for tonight. So I'd ask for the certifications for our tax collection for 2020 and see if there are any questions.
And certifications are for Douglas County as well as Elbert County.
Yes, we do have a small portion of Elbert County that is part of Douglas County School District.
All right, directors, questions about setting the mill levy? And this is different than mill levy override, obviously. This is something we do on an annual basis. But are there questions regarding the certification that Ms. Doan is recommending? See no questions. Thank you, Ms.
All right.
Is this coming from Mrs. Doan or is it part of discussion for us? Okay, would that be okay to wait till discussion then? All right, very good. Ms. Doan,
right.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so with that, board directors, I will entertain a motion and then Director Long, we will,
Motion to adopt this.
okay. Motion to adopt both resolutions for Douglas County as well as Elbert in terms of certifying the mill levy. Director Long has made that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Holtzman. All right, further discussion. Director Long, go ahead.
I just want to commend the work of the FOC, on this, and hard work financial departments. And because of recommendations of the FOC, first time ever, you will see a slide that has the non-residential contributions. We want to acknowledge our business community that contributing to our school district as well as our residents, because it's very important for us to know that we depend on both of you's support, and we treasure your support, whether you're residents or non-residents, that is contribute to our 60,000 students. Thank you.
So Director Long, you've transitioned into that treasurer role very well, I see. And he is also celebrating FOC in which he's a liaison. So just duly noted. Any other discussion before we vote? All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. Chancha Shore?
Aye.
Graziano?
Aye.
Holtzman?
Aye.
Lung?
Aye.
Meek?
Aye.
Ray, aye, and that passes unanimously as well. All right. So board, at this time, I think we'll take about a 7-minute break, and then we'll come back and begin the second part of our agenda around proposals for charter renewals. You know what?
It's good to see some of that stuff coming to fruition because for a lot of years, we've been talking about getting kids ready for work. That's what feels good.
All right, we're going to go ahead and reconvene our second half of our meeting. Next on our agenda is the first step of the process for charters that are requesting their charter be renewed. And I would just preface this by stating that the actual consideration for renewal comes in January. This is the first step for our charters to give us a quick overview of their school, but I also want the public to know, as well as I know our charter directors know this as well. We have a plethora of information about each charter school. Thanks to Mr. Windsor as well for coordinating those efforts. But we have many data points, many links to information that is important as we consider this renewal process. So even though tonight we're allowing about 10-15 minutes for each charter to give us a brief overview of their charter and their request for renewal, I do want the public to know that there's far more hours involved in considering this process than just that. So with that, I'll turn this over to Mr. Windsor.
Great. Thank you. Good evening, Board of Directors. It's nice to see you, President Ray. Thank you for the opportunity to have a chance to speak with you tonight about our 4 charter schools up for renewal. As you said, Director Ray, it is an extensive process. This process actually began last spring, working with each of our charter schools, and really began a pretty significant process, a renewal process and application where each charter school completed 17 different components within the application, had a outside site reviewer go through their schools, walk through their school, as well as the district having a chance to look at any compliance issues through our charter tools as well. We also had the opportunity, which has been a great partnership, I think, within our schools, is to be able to actually work with each of our departments as well. Our department in particular, had an opportunity to work with our finance department, systems performance office, personalized learning, security, and to go through and actually garner and start developing our staff recommendation in particular. We've spent a significant time gathering this input, reviewing all those different data points from the applications that were submitted, gathering input from our departments, and then began drafting a recommendation, a department recommendation, which we had an opportunity to look at things from strengths, areas of growth, and opportunities, specifically in the areas of academic performance, financial health, and organizational governance. We also utilized CDE audits as we were looking at financial health to verify some of the findings we also got. We really appreciated Kristen Haneke as far as in our finance team, who spent a significant amount of time, which we really appreciate Scott's structure to actually have a charter school finance person specifically just for our charters to create some consistency as well. After getting all that information, synthesizing that information, we developed a department recommendation in which we had an opportunity to go meet with our superintendent's cabinet to review our department recommendations and spend a significant amount of time reviewing those recommendations, different data points as well, to then create a staff recommendation, which is before you. After developing that staff recommendation, we have the opportunity to sit down and go through a lot of the links that you have already and go through it extensively with our charter school leaders as well, and their board chairs and their boards, to be able to share some of the information and some of the findings specifically around our staff recommendation. So before you, kind of from a timeline side of things, so when this started way back in May of last year, really went from May working with them, September having them submit their renewal letter and narrative as well as additional data. November 1st, we receive additional appendices specifically around waivers, state level waivers, conflicts of interest forms. November 15th, by November 15th, we had to go to the superintendent's cabinet and get our staff recommendation, and then here tonight for you have a chance to hear our charter schools, and then again in the second meeting in January, we'll have an opportunity to rule by resolution on that recommendation as well. So it has been an extensive process. There is a link of resources, so as you look on your particular slide, there are resources that have already been shared with you, but it was also within this slide as well, and are really excited the opportunity for me to hear from some of our schools as well. And so Not sure if there's any questions you have about some of the process side of things and how we got here. But if you do, please let me know. If not, we'll jump into our 4 different charters.
Director Graziano.
I'll just comment real quick up front because as we get a chance to hear from all the different schools, I just want to, I'll do it up front, thank Danny, the Choice Department, and all the schools that have put together an amazing amount of work here for us to review. So the thoroughness and the detail and the passion that comes through on all of these renewal forms is quite evident. So I just want to thank everyone from the district and also from all the schools that have accumulated all this for us to review. It's really very helpful, to say the least. So thanks.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions for Mr. Windsor at this time about the process? All right, Mr. Windsor, let's introduce our first school.
Great. So our 4 schools we have tonight is we have Platte River Academy, Global Village Academy, World Compass, and DC Montessori. Our 4. So Jeremy's probably giving me a hard time behind me right now, which he usually does. And so we are going to first start off with Platte River Academy and their team.
Actually, I think we're starting in order,
Oh,
alphabetical
did you guys?
order.
Oh, you switched
Mr.
it on
Windsor.
me.
So I think we're starting with DCS Montessori.
Do you want me to go
Is
DCS
that going to
Mon-
mess you up with
You know
your
what?
slide presentation?
We will just make it work. How about that?
Sorry, Platte River. But we thought the most fair way was to go alphabetically. So D begins near the end, beginning of the alphabet. So DCS Montessori School.
Clicker. Jeez. Thanks for having me. And by the way, I work with a board all the time. You guys are doing a fantastic job, David. You're great at running.
Thanks,
it.
Jeremy.
And, Jeez. Okay, so I'm just going to make this comment real quick. I'm not very good at presenting without the audience being included. That's a little bit of how Montessori works. It's very hard to have my back to people, so I'm going to do my best here.
So Jeremy, I'm going to suggest, and Mrs. Taylor, I'm looking at you, if you're going to stand and kind of do like what you're doing, you may want to have a handheld mic instead of, because I'm not sure our live streaming's picking you up otherwise, so.
Okay.
Very good.
Can everybody hear me? Okay. DCS Montessori. Okay, so first off, know this about me, and I'll give you my context of experience. This is my 11th year at DCS Montessori. Tommy's my 4th superintendent in the district. Been here for a long time. The county is blessed. We have a wonderful Montessori school, and that's not a comment on myself, but that's a comment on the school and the people who put it together that were all members of this county that wanted to make sure there was free and public Montessori education offered to the students in Douglas County. Okay. I'm not very good at the slideshow thing. But I can talk about my school. I do want to say that Montessori education is whole child education. That's our focus. What you have in front of you is kind of the central core of what we do, which is we talk about the aims of what we're trying to develop in students. Our goal in Montessori education is to actually the 25-year-old adult. It's not about where the 3-year-old is getting to or where the first grader is to. It's about developing a really high-quality adults. So social emotional learning, which is probably a buzz at the moment, is the very center core of what we do. So the topics on the right, there are 7 of them. Love learning, engaged and passionate, self-motivated and confident, responsible citizens, respect self, others, and environments, critical thinkers and leaders. These are all characteristics that we all want in all of our students. But these particular aims are basically the vision of our school at the governance level. They're also all part of how we evaluate all of our teachers. That's how we evaluate our students. They're the first thing on the report cards. They're the first thing we talk about at parent-teacher conferences. And this begins at the age of 3. By the time our kids are in middle school, they actually do self-reflection. So they're actually going to evaluate themselves on these characteristics against their peers. The extensions that are written on the right up here, like choosing a positive attitude, shares and working with others, those are the actual teacher attributes that they're looking for in their students and their development. It's a lot of work to have that as the centerpiece and yet be also an academic institution, but it's very clear you understand that. So I want to ask questions before I move on, and I'm going to push the wrong button, Danny. So there, oh, I got it. Okay. So some of you may know what Montessori is, and it really, if you want to, you just come to the school. But Montessori is hands-on learning to start with, right? everything's didactic and hands-on to begin with. Of course, that develops and changes as they get older. Elementary students starting around 4th grade are in full abstraction, so they're not going to use materials anymore very much. So it's going to look just like the learning that they do. And our middle school, of course, is designed as preparatory for Douglas County High Schools intentionally. It's enhanced social development. Our kids are in 3-year classroom models, so they always have older peers among them, which is a responsibility for the development of empathy. But it's also about that the individual children are getting the opportunity to socialize all day, but within limits, right? Kids have to be able to successfully work and be social entities at the same time, and that's why it's a development process. Students have choice. Montessori is built around what we know about humans, all of us. It doesn't matter if you're 2 years old or if you're 30 years old. Control in your life is actually what makes you take care of yourself and be healthy. And so students have choice from the time they walk into the school till the time they leave. Now, that doesn't mean they can do anything they want. Just to be very clear, a lot of people have misconceptions about Montessori. Everything is framed and structured with intention and purpose. Kids are not free to do anything they want, so it's always within limits. Multi-age classrooms, I want to come back to talking about social emotional learning for just 1 second. The purpose of having 3-year classrooms is the development of empathy. Every student, no matter how strong they are, how high of a learner they have to be a 1st grader in a 3rd grade class. They are the lowest at some point, and every student, no matter how low of a learner they are, gets the opportunity to be a leader. And we know this is true in the adult world, right? That's the framework. Those grade levels don't matter once you enter the real world. It's about competencies. So that's the goal in Montessori. That's the purpose of that 3-year classroom, but it's also sustaining culture. It's an individualized program. Sometimes, and actually you would see in our goals, like RTI programming is a goal of ours currently, and that's hard because unlike a traditional school, our kids are always individualized. So then matching up state requirements around RTI processes is a complicated task for us and something we constantly have to kind of look and work at because our kids are always individualized, right? They're not learning at the same pace of everybody around them. It's self-paced, but I always want to say that's within standards. I can't wait till somebody's above 3rd grade to learn to read. We're a public school. We manage to the standards on a regular basis. And of course, the guidelines for us are really all about developmental appropriateness. So no matter what the age level is, the centerpiece for Montessori training for our staff is always about like what's going on for the human during this developmental stage. And these are the things that really make our school very unique. And of course, a lot of modern educational research supports Montessori. Just to talk about our staff, Montessori certification is an additional year of education that our staff have to participate in, practicum programs, and realistically, all of my staff is state certified and Montessori trained, right? They have both of those things. So it's a duplicate training, but to be specific, the Montessori training itself is just to a certain age level. So they're just trained for the age level developmental needs of the kids that they're serving. But continuous professional development, we represent Douglas County at national conferences. If you've never been to a Montessori conference, it's definitely different than a traditional educator conference, and it's international. There's people from all over the world. Almost every major city in the entire planet has Montessori teaching in it. Doesn't matter what language it is, it's available, and we are Douglas County's Montessori school. We are constantly training teachers in our school because there isn't this plethora of people out there going to the university for Montessori education. Maybe going to become a teacher, but they are not Montessori teachers. So in order to be constantly making sure that whenever we do have turnover, which we don't have a lot, that we're supportive, we are constantly in-house training. Currently, I have 7 in-training staff, and then I have 4 people who have actually finished certification but are still in development. In other words, they're not in teaching roles. 11 people in our building currently in development for taking on teaching positions. So that's a big part of my job. And academic achievement too, right? I would say that, it's a little bit more complicated when you have 3 years of time and you have a very specific curriculum that's associated with you to make curricular changes to adapt to state testing. So we've had ups and downs, but we're always working ahead on those things. We have a lot of really good implementations going on right now that are manifestations of how to balance against how the standards changed about 3 years ago when we changed into the park testing. It created some challenges with traditional Montessori work, but we're doing those adjustments as necessary, okay? Okay, that's my 5-minute brief. That's the speech talk. So But I'm happy to engage in whatever questions I can in any way possible.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Questions for Mr. Johnson? Director Meek?
Which the 3-year model really is, that's where it functionally high, right? Our teachers know kids for 3 years at a time. They also know the family for 3 years at a time. It's a little bit different style of a relationship. So sometimes the evaluation of those things is really about working on what we're after for the child. If
Director
that
Lund?
makes sense.
Well, I want to thank Jeremy. He entertained me a few times when I went in to visit his school, and
Love to have you anytime.
and 2 of my kids went to that school, so I can't say anything bad about you, right? But anyway, I encourage the art director to go in and check them out, because the Montessori model is very different, and we fall in love with that, and that's why I sent 2 of my kids over there. But again, you stabilize the school in the past, 10 years or so, and for that, I think the community really feel great about that, because in a period of time, the school has been having some interesting issues, but ever since you were here, and things has been really, really calmed down. But thank you very much. So next time anything my peers, and I'm not going to bother you anymore.
Questions, directors? Any other questions? Director Holtzman?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. So I actually have one question for Douglas County staff and one question for Montessori. Is that all
Yeah,
right?
very good.
So can I start with Mr. Windsor? My question is just if you could generally describe the level of cooperation that DC Montessori has with us and the compliance they have with our policies surrounding safety and security.
Yeah. The part that I think I've really appreciated, I can say conceptually, even with all of our charter schools, is that's been a significant involvement. The work that Rich Payne and his team and our assistant superintendent helping leading some of that work, and our superintendent has been hugely beneficial. I think our attendance at regular DLT meetings and having regular conversations around safety and security conversations, compliance conversations, also in the chance of filling out all of our emergency and crisis management reports. They've all fulfilled all those requirements that are there as well. The part that I'll say specifically about Jeremy has just been a great partner with Douglas County. Anytime we can reach out and partner on things from mental health support to socio-emotional learning, they do some very unique stuff around how they issue actually grades and feedback actually around socio-emotional learning as well too. So he's been a great leader, I think, within our charter leaders as well.
All right, thank you. And then my question for you is just in general, are there additional supports that you would be requesting from our district, things that we could support you in that we aren't currently that you would request?
Actually, I wouldn't leave the podium this evening without saying in 11 years, that the support metrics between our school and the district hasn't been a really positive relationship. Like I talked about teacher training, I think I've got 6 staff that went through the Douglas County ALP training, alternative licensure programs. I'm bad about using acronyms, sorry. So, but very much so. And even a few years ago, I think maybe before Danny was supporting us, Douglas County put on the safety trainings, and for our charter admins, we had 4 really great trainings. Got to go over to Douglas County Sheriff's Office and do live training with them. That's probably 5 years ago or so like that, but really cooperative and collaborative. And I think it's interesting because Montessori, we have a curriculum and a dynamicism to us, but we are always looking for ways to be inclusionary. All of my special education staff came from Douglas County, and they all still have relationships and go back to trainings and support, and we have really valuable relationships, and I've known a lot of people in the room for quite a while. So, but if I feel like there's a need, I reach out. That's not an issue, and most of my staff is also very much the same way, and feels like that there's a lot of really rich collaboration there. I do think there is times where Tommy's job is much harder than mine, and well, I meant curricularly. Of course, his job is much harder than mine. He has to be my boardroom does not look like this, okay? But the point there is that you're trying to manage 68,000 kids, and providing resources for all those kids is more. He has to provide a lot of blanketing, and of course, a lot of times we're looking for very individually specific things. So, and I have the freedom to do that, but then I also get the great support of Douglas County for all the things that they have going on. But it's always been a very positive relationship. I mean, DCS Montessori's books, our financial books, were written by the controller for Douglas County. So, you know, we've always matched that imprint. It's always been a collaboration for us.
Thank you.
Very good. Directors, any other questions for Mr. Johnson? Director Chancho, sure.
Just one other question. What is your special education population ratio?
Oh, you want me to do that off the top of my head?
5.5%.
Yeah, I know. It's
30 students, 30 students, it says here, under demographics. Out of 547 students. I'm sorry, I'm probably interjecting inappropriately, but that's what the review says here.
Just to be cautious, like, because we don't serve special needs students at the 3 and 4-year-old age levels, right? So I wouldn't say out of 547, we have a 450 roughly K through 8 population. So, and those would all be within that population. Although we do partner, like, you know, Buffalo Ridge up the street will do afternoon preschool for a student that has special education, and they'll still come to our school in the morning, right? We do have collaboratives that work like that at the preschool level. But, yeah.
Other questions for Mr. Johnson? All right, again, well done. Thank you for being the first presenter tonight. And again, as we stated earlier,
You're making it way too easy.
So January 21st will be the time that this board takes action. But certainly we know that staff have recommended a 5-year renewal. And so we will take that to consideration as we meet on our January 21st meeting.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Mr. Windsor, introduce our next school.
So if we're going alphabetically, Global Village Academy is, I'd like to introduce Stacy Bush and her team as well.
Very good.
Yeah, Mike. And it's this here. Cool.
Yay, kids.
Good evening. My name is Stacy Bush, and I'm the principal at Global Village Academy here in Douglas County. And while I know you have lots of information and documentation about our school and how it works and the demographics, what we wanted to provide for you this evening is a little taste of GVA. So with me, I have representatives from each of our 3 language villages that would like to share with you what they love about learning a second language at Global Village Academy.
Hola, mi nombre es Johnny Anderson. Yo es en grado 2 y yo es en GVA escuela. Me gusta mi clase de... No. Me gusta círculo comunitario en mi clase de español porque yo puedo hablar con mis amigos.
His name is Johnny Anderson. He is in 2nd grade in GVA. He loves to do the community circle in Spanish because he can talk about things with his friends. Hola, mi nombre es Miley Oakman. Yo soy en sexto grado, lo siento, en GVA, en la escuela de GVA. Yo me gusta hablar con las personas en español y tener unas cosas en común con ellos.
Her name is Miley Oakman. She's in 6th grade, and she's in GVA school. She likes to be able to talk with other people in Spanish and have something in common with them.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Lyra Backup et je suis en 6e année. Je parle en français avec ma grand-mère quand elle me téléphone. J'avais aussi la chance de passer au DELF une test. J'aime ma classe de français.
Her name is Lyra Backup, and she's in 6th grade. She talks in French with her grandma when she calls. She also had the chance to do DELF, a test. She loves French. Bonjour, je m'appelle Lola Baker et je suis en 3e année. J'aime aider mes amis. On parle français puisqu'elle peut comprendre le français. J'aime ma classe de français.
Her name is Lola Baker, and she is in 3rd grade. She loves helping her friends learn French so that they can understand her. She loves her French class.
你好，我叫阿瑟卡， 我在1年级，我用大袋子，里面有多卡片，因为我要学新的东西。Hello, my name is Oscar. I am in 1st grade at GVA Douglas County. I use a big bag of cards to help me learn new words in Chinese.
你好，我叫冰冰，我在6年级。我很喜欢汉语，因为我可以说汉语在很多地方。汉语也是最多说语言在地球。Hi, my name's Burnett. I'm in 6th grade. I really like Chinese because I can speak it in many places. Chinese is also the most spoken language in the world.
你好，我叫鸡鸡，我上1年级。我和中文餐厅的人说中文，也和我的叔叔和哥哥奥斯卡说中文。我喜欢看别人说中文，我喜欢上中文课。Hi, my name is Gigi. I am in 1st grade. I talk to restaurant waiters and my uncle what I know. I like to have conversations with my brother in Chinese. We make them fun. I sometimes see other people who speak Chinese. Chinese class is so fun. Mm-hmm. Hi, my name is Phoenix Backup. I'm a kindergartner. We'd like to invite you to the next International Day, Sweden, on December 19th. Who are we? The Dragons. And what are we? Respectful, responsible, and ready to learn. Go Dragons!
All right.
Thank you for your time this evening. Thank you so much. Do any of you have any questions for our students?
Wow. Well, I would just say we're all wowed by your language, except for Director Long, who speaks about 8 different languages. This is just old hat for him. But for those of us that are just English speakers, how impressed we are to listen to you speak multiple languages. So way to go. Good work. Directors, any questions for our students? Yeah, please, Director Long.
嘿，谢谢你们，你们讲的中文比我讲的还好。圣诞快乐 ！Global Village Academy 的学生的水准真是很高，我很高兴。
谢谢。
谢谢，谢谢，谢谢。
Did he say anything bad about me?
They responded, thank you, so I don't think so.
Okay, very good.
I think
very
you're
good.
okay. And I just wanted you to know that when we were putting together our presentation, we gathered some students that were just very enthusiastic about learning their languages and just posed this question: what would you want folks to know about your experience at GVA, and what does it mean to you to be able to speak a second language? So you can see we have students from kindergarten all the way up through 6th grade representing our Spanish, our French, and our Mandarin village. So thank you guys very much.
Very good. Thank you. And thank you, parents, for bringing your children down for us as well. Thank you.
They just want to hang out now. Been working on this for days.
That'd be okay
so
with us, yeah. Yeah, give them another round of applause. Great job.
All right, thank you. So any questions that you have for me?
Any questions from Ms. Bush?
We left you speechless. That was our plan
That's right.
all along.
Good strategy. I saw Director Holtzman's hand go up.
Yeah, so that was amazing. Thank you for doing that for us. So I just wanted to ask some questions really at your board level.
Okay.
So feel free to answer or refer or whatever. But I know that the school is reducing service to K to 5. That's the plan. And so basically, my question is, as you plan for the future, as your board plans for the future, I noticed they've planned for moderate or minimal growth. They were conservative in their estimates. But we know that revenue comes to schools through their pupil count. So I just wanted to ask your board how they're planning for that and making sure that your budget will be viable and that you'll be able to provide services all your students need.
Fantastic. And before I turn this over to Deb Wilson, who is our phenomenal board president, just to share with you just a few things about our growth. Prior to my arrival at GVA, who is in its 5th year, I was the 3rd or 4th principal. So there was a lot of administrative turnover. And while we had a very good, very strong staff, we really didn't have that solidarity as a team. And so with that, the stability, we have seen our numbers become more secure and more, I guess, more dependable and more predictable. And as we have moved forward, we have had, as we've heard from other charter schools, just a few hiccups in, trying to fulfill what we hope to be able to, provide education or provide services through middle school. And when we did not have the space to do that, had to make some other difficult decisions. And that has impacted our enrollment and our growth, but we still continue to grow as our students are coming in. So we still have that healthy piece, even though we continue to be conservative.
All right, and the majority of your question was on the financial piece of that. Finances drove that decision in a lot of ways because to expand to the full middle school with all the services that it required, staffing that it required, and then to continue to grow the school required us to actually add to the building on site. At this time with our current population, we don't have the revenue for that. And so that was what helped make that decision. With the decision to stay K-5, we are able to stay on our location in our current facilities for the foreseeable future. We do have, within the town of Parker, we have approval to drop 2 more modulars on site. So when we grow outside of our numbers, that we will have the space to add those 4 classrooms, I guess I would say. We are very conservative in our numbers, and that's because we've overshot a few years and reaped the wonderful benefits of that. And so we'd rather be conservative and look at those numbers and then be surprised by more kids. It is obviously our goal to grow past those numbers within our K-5, but we want to build that growth out rather than up is really our plan, and then just develop the education from that aspect. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's helpful. So thank you.
Director Chancho-Show, and then we're going to come back to Director Holtzman.
And I'm asking this question for the purpose of it being public, so I know the answer.
All right.
But I'd like to know your SPED number ratio.
No, I'm not going to help you this time.
I
got
help
the
you.
hairy eyeball from Director Chancho-Show. So.
Oh my heavens. And so I don't know what that number is
It's
offhand.
6.9%.
There you go, it's 6.9%. Thank you very much. So 6.9%. You're welcome.
Director Holtzman.
And again, I have a question for Mr. Windsor for the district, and then I have one final question for them. Is that all right?
That sounds good.
So Mr. Windsor, the same question about safety and security, and just if you could briefly describe Global Village's cooperation and compliance with our safety policies and with the things that are required by statute in regards to safety.
Very similar message than I would say with DCS Montessori as well. We have had a chance again to partner. That was part of our staff recommendation, was to review that they were in compliance. We have verified that they're in compliance of all the emergency management and crisis response plans as well. We've had regular meetings, again, with Stacy Bush, who's attended our district leadership team meetings on a regular basis, and has been an active part of us looking at developing our draft of our core performance plan as well. So have been very good partners.
Thank you. And then similar question to you. Are there any additional supports that you'll be requesting from Douglas County?
If I could just begin by saying that, and echoing Jeremy's sentiments, that we really are very blessed in that we have the opportunity to be unique and to be independent in the way that we provide our education and the way that we model that education, with the dual benefit of being a member of Douglas County School District. We have so many positive partnerships, and we have just reaped the benefit not only of the finance department, of Dr. Tucker's leadership, of definitely of Danny Windsor and his team, safety and security. And so I really feel that anytime that we need anything, that we have a plethora of folks that we can reach out to, whether that is with charter questions in our charter community or whether that's through the district. So I don't know that there's any additional things we would request. We work together significantly and meet often to review what things are available to us. We receive a lot of outstanding communication from the leadership team at Douglas County. So I feel like we're aware of what's available. We have the opportunity to engage when we need to. And even if it's just a question, we had a question today about gifted and talented, and we're able to reach out to some of our colleagues from Douglas County to say, what are your recommendations? How would you proceed? So I feel like we're very supported. I can't think of anything in addition that we would ask for at this time, but know that if we need something, we can ask.
Thank you.
Mr. Windsor, I do have a question for you, kind of follow up with Director Holtzman's. Is it common practice for charters to not serve grade levels that they chartered for? So in other words, is it common practice if we have a charter that says we want to serve K through 7, and I certainly respect what the board president is saying in terms of being fiscally responsible for their enrollment, but is that typical practice where we say, okay, we're going to go to K through 5 because we realize that we need to keep our finances conservative with the population we have?
What I can speak to during my time, in the sense of what I've known, is realistically this is the one experience I've had to actually see that reduction that is there. However, the conversations was consistent as far as with what Ms. Wilson said, specifically around kind of the financial responsibilities and the ability to expand base programming was definitely a concern that was there. We did have a very straightforward conversation about what that looked like, I think, in this charter renewal about that K-5 and potentially what that impact could be on the community was the big part of saying having that consistency so our families very much understood what that looked like being a K-5 programming and minimizing the transitions for our kids.
So it's not problematic when we approve a charter, a K through 8 charter, and they have intent to grow into that. It's not problematic. We don't have like this timeline that says you must hit that growth level of being a K through 8. That's not something that we have to be concerned about in terms of rewriting a charter, if you will, for that purpose.
The conversation has probably been more about expanding grades rather than a reduction in grades. And so we've seen multiple schools, whether it was from Lehman when it initially opened to Ascent, that we've seen that expansion in grades that are there. And there definitely will be those financial implications specifically around size of cohorts that they can financially make it viable to be able to do that. And those are things that we look at within pre-opening conditions.
Very good, very good. All right. Directors, any other questions for Global Village Academy? All right. Ms. Bush, thank you. Thank you again for brightening our evening with your children as well. Job well done. All right. Mr. Windsor, if you'll introduce our next school.
All righty, to stay on track here with the alphabetical order, we are going to, I'm going to have some fun with that. I'm going to bring up Becky and Alan and Mike and their team to talk a little bit about Platte River Academy.
Very good.
You need it?
Yeah.
You just press this button right there.
The right one?
Yep, you got
Okay,
it.
great. All right. All right. Well, distinguished board, we're pleased to be here. Dr. Tucker, Danny Windsor. We wanted to open by saying thank you to all of you for your support over the last 20 years. We're really proud to be a part of Douglas County Public Schools. And you have blessed us deeply with your support and kindness and just being there for us when we needed you, and hopefully we've made you proud. I'd like to introduce our school leadership. We have moved to a director model in the last couple of years where we actually have 3 directors and a business manager. And so I would like them to come forward. Becky Bonner is our director of academics. Alan McQueen is our director of operations. Jackie Cody is our business manager. Our board president is Brett Bach, the short guy right there. And finally, my name is Mike Meunier, and I'm the director of strategy and development. As you know, our mission statement says everything about what Platte River is about. We're a content-rich, academically rigorous program with a well-defined and sequential curriculum that is served in a safe, caring, and orderly environment. That mission has engendered this motto or mandate for us, which is, right there, we know and grow every learner. That's what we're driven by, not only by the mission statement, but by that thought. And frankly, we think we've done a really, really good job of that over the last 20 years. And to remind you, Platte River Academy has been a John Irwin School of Excellence 18 years in a row. And that represents the top 8 or 9% of all schools in the state of Colorado, all 1,863 of them. And we're really proud that we continue to keep that streak going. Second slide. These are our guiding principles that both Becky and Alan are going to expand on here in just a second. But our mandate is accomplished through these guiding principles, fostering a sense of belonging, honoring traditions, and developing the whole child. So I'm going to turn to Becky, and Becky's going to share with you a little bit about some of the principles.
So hi.
Good evening.
How are you? I'm Becky Bonner. I wrote my thoughts down because I'm a babbler. So I was concerned about these 5 minutes that I was given and that I would roll on and on and on. So forgive me, but I'm going to kind of read. When I look at this particular slide, and when we were condensing what Platte River Academy is into 4 slides that we were allotted, we thought what crystallizes who we are. This is the whole picture, a good chunk of the picture, and I think of these 3 bullets as our secret recipe, if it were. Academic excellence, or the interpretation of what we teach our children, longevity of our teachers and excellent staff, and the who teaches our children, and then finally the learner-centered programming, which is how we teach our children. The what, core knowledge, provides a content-rich sequence of topics and skills to support every learner's development as a reader, a writer, a mathematician, and mainly a thinker. Children cannot be literate without knowing about history, science, art, music, literature, civics, geography, and more. Using research-based methods and vetted curricular materials to introduce learners to interesting core knowledge topics results in academic excellence. Who teaches our kids are amazing educators. Every one of our teachers are licensed and endorsed in the subject areas they teach. We're fortunate that our teachers, once they come on board, they stay with us, an average of 9 years. We see fewer than 5% leaving on any given year. There's a special synergy that's created from teachers who have worked and collaborated together in the interest of kids for that time frame. Our teachers and staff lead one another and support each other in this work in every classroom every day. We have some of the most talented, dedicated, and passionate teachers, and they truly go above and beyond to know and grow every learner at our school. How we teach, in some ways, is perhaps considered traditional, but I would argue that we innovate and improve and inspire one another to grow beyond every year. Our central goal is to grow every kid, and in order to do so, we have to know where they are first and we have to know exactly what they need to grow. And to determine this, we rely not only on data, but on our relationships that we have grown with each child. We dedicate time daily to meeting varied needs of our students. We have, as many as every school does, a broad spectrum of learners, and we call this time we dedicate daily Panther Time, and it's an acronym that loosely means prioritizing all students' needs by dedicating time, hands, educators, and resources. And we use this time to service individual learners' needs, whether that means providing a challenge or skills intervention, depending on where the learner is. And between the classroom teachers and their instructional aides and the reading, math, learning services, and GT specialists we have in our building, we really are able to reach all levels of learners. I have to change a slide. Oh, very good. Okay. So that brings us to fostering a sense of belonging, which is, this is what we do when we come together to school every day. We have 4 core values that lead us, which are respect, responsibility, compassion, and integrity. You can hang your hat on any one of these 4 values to bring home a teachable moment with a child, and we do everything we can to intentionally weave these elements of character into conversations with students every day in the hallway and in the classrooms. A focus on these values leads to a caring culture. We twice annually, survey our students, our SAC does, and year after year our students tell us that they feel safe at PRA and that they believe their teachers care about them. They also tell us that they have friends when they come to school and they feel like they belong. Another aspect of our caring culture is the phenomenal relationships that we build with families. As a K-8 school, we spend many, many years with our families. From when first oldest child kindergartner begins to when youngest sibling exits 8th grade, we've learned to get to know families over a span of up to 15 years. We have as little turnover with our families as we do with our staff. And what this means is we have just this consistent family environment, and we rely on one another and we support each other, and it really does create kids who thrive. So that is our story there, and I'm going to introduce Alan McQueen. He's going to carry on.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Becky, and esteemed board directors. As my role as the Director of Operations, I'm charged with promoting a welcoming culture for parents, students, and the community. To accomplish this, at PRA, we honor many traditions that create opportunities for everyone to come together and to support and celebrate our students. We have a family volunteerism expectation where every family is asked to complete a minimum of 40 hours of volunteerism each year. And we say that when your kids come to Platte River Academy, it's not only them, but it's you that comes to school with us. And you make new friends with other parents, and it's through these volunteerism opportunities where those connections are born. We also host awards assemblies quarterly to recognize hard work and perseverance. We hold annual core knowledge events for kindergarten through 5th graders. And we honor servicemen and women at our Veterans Day Assembly annually. And we invite local retirees from the V, that we actually have some World War II veterans that have joined us in the past, and we are honored to have them join us for these special events. We also provide several student leadership programs that allow for students to have empowerment and ownership to exist so that they will take pride in our school. Each core knowledge event has an older class assigned as helpers. Our National Junior Honor Society students tutor the kindergartners through 5th graders after school. And our 8th grade students are involved in our Elevate program, where they complete daily 10-minute tasks to help the school and meet in groups to tackle larger projects where they create proposals and bring them to our leadership team. Next slide. So in addition to the programs mentioned, we prioritize opportunities for all students to be successful and shine. This is most prevalent through our comprehensive specials offerings. All students have art, music, PE, and kindergarten through 8th grade. They also have Spanish 21st century skills and library instruction the entire time they're at Platte River Academy. We provide numerous before and after school activities, including a middle school athletics program, performing arts programs, chess, and other clubs, as well as academic competitions like Science Olympiad, Math Olympiad, Destination Imagination, and Battle of the Books. A top priority at Platte River Academy is to listen to the student's voice through surveys and promoting persuasive writings to express their desires to make changes and improvements. This is one of the many ways that we promote student voice and create a sense of empowerment and grow leaders among our student population. Now I'll let Mike close our presentation.
I hope that gives you a good picture, and the 600 plus pages we gave you to comb through over your long evenings gives you a good idea of what's going on at Platte River Academy. And so we're here to answer any questions. And so Becky and Alan and Jackie, would you step up? And we'll take any questions you may have for us.
All right, thank you very much for your presentation. Directors, any questions? I assume we're gonna have the same questions. Director Chancho Shore, there's a theme tonight.
There's a theme of this question.
Yeah.
Special education population ratio?
5%, but I'd like to add to that, that is 5% this last year, 25 students. We've been as high as 45, which would put us at 9%. So that has varied over years, and where we have children, test out of the program or move on to when they leave us in 8th grade and so forth. So we've had anywhere from 5 to 9. Mm-hmm.
Director Holtzman and then Director Meek.
Yeah, so thank you for the presentation. I have two questions. I'm going to start with Mr. Windsor. Thank you. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but if you could answer for Platte River Academy, the level of, and briefly describe the level of cooperation that they show in compliance with our safety policies and with any statutory safety requirements.
Again, you're going to hear a very common message, I think, with all of our charters in this, but in particular with Platte River, with their model, I think in particular as well from the director's model, there's a real intentionality around what that looks like. I would like to highlight kind of the team leadership experience that both Becky and Alan both teach a class specifically with 8th graders to really talk about inclusiveness and creating that safety environment as well. So really unique opportunity in the sense of what they do teach, but have been great partners, have been in compliance with their emergency management and crisis response plans as well.
Thank you. And then one question for Platte River. Are there any additional supports that you'll be requesting of Douglas County School District?
I don't know. Let me go. So from the operational side, we've already partnered and we're part of the bond project now. And I'd like to thank all of the staff in Douglas County for their support and welcoming us into that process. As with all charter schools, we have our own specific needs and we're trying to fit into the greater district portfolio, and they are understanding of that. And so they have been very professional in the way that they've scheduled meetings, conducted this entire process. They've answered repeated questions and continue, and allow us to learn as we go into this process. These are things that are large scale. It's rooftop unit replacement, it's new phone systems, it's security systems. So we really do feel like we are supported and included in what Douglas County is doing.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Director Meek.
So thank you very much for the presentation. You mentioned 40 hours of volunteerism. I'm just wondering, do you have families that struggle to meet that, who maybe don't have that time on their hands to help, and how you address that?
So we provide a wide variety of opportunities to do that. That's not only done in the class or the school, but it's also a lot of take-home projects. We do have families expected to do 4 car line responsibilities. So it's our crossing guard duty. We go send them through the district's previous training, and that's a way that they do it. What it has done is it's built a culture that we're all in this together. So if someone does not complete those 40 hours, this is publicly broadcast, but there's not anything that we can do. So we appreciate those minimum 40 hours. We work with families to find ways to match their skill sets with what we can do. We have Saturday work days where families can come in, and we also extend this out to extended families. So we have aunts and uncles and grandparents, and the kids themselves can actually add to that family's 40 hours. So right now, we have not had any complaints or concerns about not being able to reach those.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Director Long.
I just want to say that, Pat River is a model charter school that are working with the school district. You're the third or the fourth charter school in our school district, right? So, and I visited your school twice already, and I'm very impressed, in both time. And many of my customers, from your school, and they always, very loyal and say many good things, to me about that. And of course, Mr. McQueen used to work for Heritage Elementary as principal, so we love to have, people that work for the labor school and also in the charter school facilitate, the understanding. And that's why I know that, you are really well in the words and in academics, and thank you for the invitations for me to visit there again. And as long as you keep my good friend, Kim Boy in the board, you'll be fine.
All right. Directors, any other questions for our PRA team? All right, and just to echo, I think, Ms. Meunier, you said it, well, in terms of you guys have an established history, reputation. Certainly, receiving the John Irwin Award for 18 years in a row is a huge accolade to the work you folks are doing. So we certainly would be remiss if we didn't congratulate you on that as well. But again, great presentation. Thank you for the information, and we'll look forward to January 21st when this board will render a decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our last charter renewal we have is World Compass Academy. We have Susan Borges, Bethany Merkling, and Sabrina De Remus that are here that I'd like to invite up here to begin their presentation.
Very good. Welcome.
Welcome, and thank you so much for all your support over the past 5 years since we've been open. And I can say, as only a 5-year-old school, all the support you even offered before we opened, because opening a charter school is a lot of work, and we had district support even before we were able to open our doors. So thank you very much for that. We wanted to begin by giving you a peek inside World Compass Academy so you could see what it looks like inside our school every day. So we have a video for you that's part of our PowerPoint presentation. It's that first slide. It's this one, and then does that make it play? Okay, perfect.
I pledge today to do my best as I set off on this learning quest. I promise I will be polite and always try to choose what's right. I will treat others kindly, persevere, try new things, and overcome my fears. I will respect myself and others too, be honest in all I do. The world is here for me to see. I am here to be the best I can be. I am ready to spread my wings. I can go anywhere, do anything.
World Compass embraces the safety and security of all of our students and staff as the most important responsibility we have. Students must feel emotionally and physically safe in their learning environment in order to take the risks necessary to become active learners.
The second step social emotional learning curriculum and restorative justice explicitly teach positive life skills, acceptance and tolerance, and they allow our students to reflect on and take ownership of their learning and their decisions.
Circle Time is an activity we do in homeroom. We do it about once a week. It builds community and The sixth graders really get into it. They learn to trust each other and support each other and realize that sometimes their problems other people have as well.
In second step, I learned how to knock on people's heart. Be nice to people around you.
In second step, I learned how to be assertive.
I learned how to handle strong emotions.
Team building and collaboration are important life and career skills our students develop so they can compete in a globally focused society.
Foreign language is an important part of our academic program. Language instruction begins in preschool and is taught daily.
你几岁了？对，我4岁。
Foreign language promotes cross-cultural understanding, and it is an important part of our academic model. But we offer more than just language instruction.
Bonjour, madame. Est-ce que ça va bien ou ça va moins bien?
Ça va bien.
Adiós. Hasta mañana. At World Compass Academy, we strive to prepare our students to be global citizens. Strong academic foundations, character development, interpersonal skills, cultural and global awareness and sensitivity, and technology proficiency are all critical puzzle pieces our students must develop in order to successfully navigate our global society.
By hosting international focused assemblies, celebrations, and even incorporating international cuisine into our student lunch offerings, we are creating a positive understanding and appreciation of our world's cultures.
Implementation of the core knowledge curriculum, adjusted and aligned with 2020 standards, and Step Up to Writing curriculum provide students with a systemic, sequential approach to reading and writing. Along with foundations for our younger learners and the Reader's Workshop approach to teaching literacy, students can move through the learning to read years at a pace that parallels their developmental stages.
In the older grades, where students are reading to learn, core knowledge provides a sequential map of global content that engages and inspires our learners.
Students also have the opportunity to soar past normal grade level expectations in areas of strength through ability grouping and accelerated opportunities. For students who require a little more time to develop mastery, interventions such as Waterford, Lexia, Wilson, and leveled literacy intervention are available to support student needs. This provides opportunities for all students to reach their highest potential.
My favorite part about World Compass Academy is probably the teachers. My favorite part about World Compass Academy is foreign language.
My favorite thing about World Compass Academy is probably how accepting the people here are of others and their cultures and stuff.
Very nice. We can applaud that.
So as I said, World Compass is a 5-year-old school. So since our inception, we have really grown a lot. This started as a grassroots effort in our community. We had a board originally that represented 5 different nationalities, and at that time in Douglas County, there wasn't any options for schools that were just purely international and language focused. We've grown since then, that's not true anymore, but at the time when we were looking, that was something that wasn't in place. So a group of parents and teachers got together and distributed door flyers, walked around the pool, walked around baseball games, trying to get parent support to really open the doors of World Compass Academy. And as you can see, that community support and involvement has continued through today. Since we've opened, we've grown from about 400 students to just over 600 students this year. We've maintained a performance level ranking on the school SPF every single year. We've grown from a preschool through grade 5 school to a preschool through grade 8 school now, and last year we were really excited to see our first 8th grade class graduate and begin high school this year, and even better to hear back from them that they feel successful in high school after having been at our school over the last 5 years.
So where are we today? These are our guiding principles at World Compass Academy. We really believe in a strong and positive school culture, international focus, rigorous academics, and mastery learning. We know relationships are really, really important in order for students to feel comfortable, in order to be able to learn. So we take time at the beginning of the year and all throughout the year to make sure that we are building relationships. We know about that student's life. We know about their interests. We know what their caveats are. We know what their carrots are. So we really get to know them. And then we're able to then take that knowledge and connect it to the curriculum that we're trying to teach so that they can make their own connections. We know that that internalizes learning at a much deeper level. We also have that international focus that Bethany spoke about with our language, rigorous academics. Students in the middle school, in some areas, including math and language arts, are performing a year to a year and a half ahead of their grade level if they have the ability to do so. So we want to open those doors and allow students to do that, but at the same time, provide those interventions that are really critically important for students who struggle or who may just need a little bit more time with core. And then we have that mastery learning. What does it look like for students to be able to master a concept? In math, what happens if they don't? If they don't master a concept, is that going to create a gap in their learning moving forward? So we want to make sure that they master each one of those key components before moving on so that they're not creating their own gaps and that learning can go deeper and it's not just that surface learning. So you'll see a bunch of words on that screen, a lot of things that all schools do, to be quite honest with you, and they all focus it on. But one of the things I'd like to draw your attention to, I've been working in education for about 30 years, and what I do know is that when you go to a school and you have teachers whose students are in that school, that speaks miles about the quality of that school. I've been in schools where teachers would not send their students to that school. So at WCA, 90% of the teachers who have students that are the age level K-8 have their students at World Compass Academy. That speaks miles about what we do, how we care, and how we treat each other as family. Other things that we are really focusing on this year too, as Bethany mentioned, that social emotional support. We have seen great student growth in math. That's been one of our focus areas, and that has come to fruition, so we're very excited about that. We also have student voice. We have Cougar Committee, which is our student council, but most recently, we just finished our first service project. And what we did, each grade level had an opportunity to become involved doing a certain task in creating care bags for homeless people, and not only just in the city of Denver, but even in our Castle Rock area here. And so every student in every grade level had an opportunity and a job to do, from bringing a certain item or items to helping assemble the bags, to writing notes that they could put in the bags that are inspirational, to our youngest ones drawing pictures that we included in those bags. We thought maybe we set a goal of 250 bags. We created 370 bags. We will be delivering those downtown too on Colorado Cares Day. So we're very excited about being able to do that. And then we're very, very excited about the commitment that our community and our children are making to serve back and to give back to others, as well as taking it. We want them to learn how to give back.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mrs. Borsich and Mrs. Merkling as well for that presentation. Directors, do we have any questions for our WCA team? Director Chancho Shore has a question for you.
What would be your percentage of special education students?
I can tell you 8.6.
Thank you.
Good job. Director Graziano?
Yeah, thanks for that presentation, appreciate it. One of the comments, just in looking through all the information provided, was around your board and some of your board meetings not being posted prior to, and I know there were several new board members. So talk to me about how new board leaders are aligned with the direction and the support of your current school leaders.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sabrina Doremus. I am the current board president, effective 1 July 2019. We do certainly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all tonight to provide some clarification. So going into the fact that prior to 1 July, there were a few meetings that were not posted properly under Colorado's Sunshine Law. We have now at least 48 to 72 hours ahead of time. We do sunshine all of our meetings, and we do also post that in a public place as agreed upon at the beginning of the school year. We also now, to ensure that we are furthering communication with our parents and community and being as transparent as possible, we also ask our administrators to send out an email notification on IC Portal to our entire community to ensure that everybody knows. We also do then direct them at that time to our website so that if they wanted to look at the agenda or see what's going to be on there, that they're more than welcome to do that. We have also initiated rather formal, but board check-ins weekly with both of our administrators, and we do document those. We have a very collaborative, great feedback session to where we can give and receive feedback collaboratively and then act on those. So.
Very good.
Very
Thank you.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Holtzman?
Thank you for the presentation. I did want to clarify one thing that I heard in public comment earlier. Our Douglas County School District Board of Education, the 7 of us, don't have authority to hire, fire, or compensate any of the employees at World Compass. And so I just want to clarify that there seems to be some misinformation that was given in public comment. But kind of in that regard, I have questions concerning consideration of and the possibility that it already exists, the utilization of an educational service provider. So I just wondered if you could discuss that for me. Based on some of the things I've seen, there's some argument to be made that you may already be using an educational service provider. But irregardless, if you're considering expanding that or adding that, I'm just curious in hearing more about your thought processes as a board in that regard and how that would affect your budget and being able to provide the same services and probably needing to provide some additional services for students.
Yes, ma'am, we'll be happy to answer that. A few months ago, about the beginning of the school year, being that Dr. Borzik was a para-retiree and she was over her 110, she had decided to go and work for G&G Consulting Group. And what we did to maintain the stability of the school, to further enhance the educational opportunities of our students and really supply that stability, we leased her back from G&G as a leased employee for our school. We did consult with Danny Windsor at one point, and I did ask him to review the contract because initially our attorney was concerned that under ESP guidelines by the district, that maybe we didn't have all of the language in there to protect not just the school, but the district. So in essence, we're not really doing an ESP, and we've asked the question whether or not it is an ESP. We've been told, no, it's really not. It's a leased employee agreement for this year only, at which time we'll, look at continuing Dr. Borzik's employment with us, but in a different arrangement. At no point in time does the board intend to, or have we ever considered using an ESP, because we believe that as a charter school with innovation and creativity in academics and education, that we really need to maintain control and direction of those employees to ensure that we are best serving the needs of our student community. So we are not going to have an ESP. We have no plans of engaging an ESP, and we are not using an ESP.
Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Other questions, directors? I know Director Holtzman has her centered questions left, but are there other questions? I'm looking down the dais. Director Meek?
Thank you. That was really interesting and helpful. It's wonderful to sit here and listen to these stories around great work that's being done in our schools. And maybe this is a question for Mr. Windsor. I'm just wondering how our charter schools collaborate with our neighborhood schools and vice versa, so we're sharing best practices and having an inclusive, conversation.
Yeah. I have to begin by giving a lot of credit, I think, to Dr. Tucker, I think, in his leadership, really talking about this unity of purpose and that all 68,000 kids are all 68,000 kids. What I've been really proud of, I think, with our charter leaders in particular, has been the regular attendance at our district leadership team meetings and the ability to be able to share out regular conversations, regular practices, and really partner with one another. The idea of sharing best practices from an instructional side of things, those really happen in those smaller conversations at that time where we're even starting to see some of our folks attend some level meetings as well to give some of that feedback. But really, I think what's been great, I would probably say in our charter leader meetings, we've probably had about a 95% attendance rate for our charter leaders at our meetings, which has been really powerful when we're talking about looking at larger level core performance framework and effective schools model. And so it's been a regular conversation that we've been able to share that as a collective group, but also being a part of the school leadership team that our assistant superintendent leads as well too. We've been able to share those practices as well from a leadership standpoint.
So Mr. Windsor, say put, because I think this would be a good time for Director Holtzman to ask her question, and I also see Director Chancho Shore as well.
So I'm just trying to find
Oh, whoops.
No, that's okay. So yeah, I did want to ask a question, and I actually have a couple more questions for World Compass, if that's okay. But for Mr. Windsor, if you could describe, same question, the cooperation that World Compass shows in compliance with our safety policies and any statutory requirements.
World Compass, I think between both Susan and Bethany, really have been active participants working with our Director of Security and actually reach out on a regular basis with any security-based questions, give a lot of credit for them to really make sure there is that partnership. They have been updated again on their emergency management and crisis response forums as well too, and again have been active participants in the conversations that we've had around safety and security.
Very good. Director Chancho Shore, and then we'll come back to Director Holtzman.
I couldn't find the statistics for free and reduced lunch. Do you know the percentages? I have them right here. 4%. 4%? Thank you.
Director Holtzman?
So just to follow up with all of you at World Compass, as we know, safety and security is very related to the positive culture and climate in our buildings. And I wanted to congratulate you on being, I believe it's endorsed by CASEL, your social emotional learning program, and that's very important. It's important to us as a board, and it seems to be important to you all. I did see some things that gave me just pause and question in regards to climate and culture, and wondered if you all could talk to me about ways that you might be planning to measure quantitatively, qualitatively, that sort of a thing. If there's ways that you're looking at implementing your social emotional learning in a different way, just kind of wondered if you could give me more information about that.
So our SAC administers surveys to our students and to our parents, as well as to our staff. So when we look at those survey results, we've actually seen a lot of growth in climate and culture. As a new school, as we were just getting started for the first several years, we did have administrator turnover. I know Sue and I have been stable the last 2 years, but in a charter school, but in any school, 2 years isn't a particularly long time. And I think when you do have that kind of turnover, that it does create problems in climate and culture. So I know when Sue and I came in, that was one of our focuses. And as a co-leadership model, something that we wanted to model, that positivity, something that was really important. We partnered with PTO last school year, our very first year, and we said, we really need to make sure that climate and culture is at the forefront of what we're doing. So PTO made that their mission as well. And so they did things all year to boost that morale both in our community and boost that morale among our staff. And we've seen huge growth. And I can say that both in the feeling that I have in the building, but I can also say that quantitatively when I look at that growth in our SAC survey data.
Just to follow up, I believe the SAC survey data was taken from parents. I'm specifically interested in students.
Yeah, we have SAC survey data from students as well.
Are there any plans to change any of your programming based on some of the information you've gained from those surveys, or?
So some of the changes that we did make was implementing Second Step. We haven't always had Second Step at World Compass Academy. That was something that we did implement effective 2 years ago, was adding a social emotional program to our school. So we added Second Step specifically to make sure that we were actively teaching our kids those things. So we trained our teachers in Second Step. We, in elementary, they do it in their homeroom classes. In middle school, we allot 45 minutes weekly for them to do it. We made sure our staff was trained in it so that we could make sure we were addressing that need.
Just one more follow-up.
Yeah.
So if your SAC is the primary instrument that you're using to gather this information, I'm assuming these are volunteers. Are you having this survey data evaluated by others, or are the volunteers making all the recommendations, and is everything coming from the SAC?
I mean, we look at it as a joint, the SAC volunteers, obviously, but then we also have teacher representatives on that team, and because that's what SAC is, and then administration is on that team. Are you talking more of like an outside agency looking?
No, I'm talking about your staff, so.
Yeah, the teacher representatives that are on that.
All right, and then finally, my standard question. Will you be requesting any additional supports from Douglas County School District?
We just appreciate all the support that has been offered. We appreciate the opportunities to participate in professional development at the district level. We appreciate the availability of staff, the GT, the SPED department, Danny, to answer questions when they come up for us. And a huge shout out for us to Zachary Hess in Restorative Justice. We've worked with him. We got a grant to Better Than Carrots and Sticks for that book for our staff, and have been able to attend some of the trainings. And I know Zachary's been out and worked and spoken with us. So we really appreciate especially that Restorative Justice team.
Thank you.
Thanks. Last question, Director Chandra Shore.
Thank you again. I read that 52% of the teachers were dissatisfied with the amount of professional development. How will you be addressing that?
I get to take this one. One of the things that I instituted when we came on board was I meet with all of my teachers weekly in team meetings by grade level. And we look at, depending on what we're working on, this particular year we're working really on that reading workshop model, shifting over from whole group language instruction to that reading workshop model where we can differentiate for our learners. And so we meet weekly to take a look at student data, to talk about the things that we're working on, to have conversations about students if we need to, and to have address challenges. We've, in some grade levels, have allowed teachers to go into other classrooms to learn from teachers because we know that's a really valuable learning component as well. And so helping them to define what their professional development is based upon their needs, based upon some of the goals that they set as a result of the evaluation process, really helps us meet the needs of teachers in a differentiated way, just like we do with our students. Does that answer your question?
Very good. Thank you very much. All right, WCA team, we probed you plenty tonight, so we want to thank you, though, for, again, great presentation. The video was wonderful as well to get a glimpse in your school, so thank you very much for being here. I do have a final question for Mr. Windsor, and then we'll move on to our other agenda items. So tonight we saw certainly Platte River Academy and DCS Montessori that's been with us for many years, 20 years or more. And I know I've communicated an interest, and I think, Mr. Windsor, you might have this as well. How do we differentiate this process for those schools that have shown us year after year after year that their students are performing well, the organization's doing great? How do we differentiate, or can we differentiate for a school like PRA or DCS Montessori that's been with us for 20 or more years?
I really appreciate that question. It's actually a conversation we've been having for probably about a year and a half in my current role in particular, about how do we how do we systematize this process and really honor that if schools are consistently performing in some of those main areas, and really, first of all, safety, and I really appreciate that conversation and question you bring up, but really look at those main areas from safety to academic performance to final health to governance, but really making sure we're meeting the needs of all students. And so we've been developing this concept specifically around developing a core performance framework that we're trying to utilize that really is going to be developing some objective metrics that our schools can do a self-analysis of these identified criteria, which we've collaboratively developed, and want to start developing this core performance framework as a base for how we move forward to integrate this off of a yearly review that ties into an overall renew. So once we get to 5 years, we can look at that self-analysis data, compare it to data from CDE audits, to a variety of areas to verify a variety of things from that they do with our charter school compliance reporting. So by the time they get to this particular pace, and we have all the different measures that identify it, plus these core performance framework, it really will allow us to then streamline this process, where it'll automatically create a point value to say this school would automatically qualify for a 5-year renewal. And so we've been spending a lot of time as a collective group in developing this. We're going to be seeking input, obviously, from our board. We're going to be seeking input from the Colorado League of Charter Schools, the Alliance, as well as the Colorado Association of Charter School Authorizers, to get feedback and work, obviously, with our legal team to get feedback and make sure there's a direct correlations to what the contract says as well, to really streamline this process that really honors, I think, those schools that are doing great things. But I also think it allows those schools to use this as a self-analysis for their school as well, for their board members to be able to see what it looks like. As a principal, as a former principal, I'd love to have that regular data as well, so we can give and develop focus goals as a building. So that's exactly what we're working towards, is to streamline that particular process. And our team of charter leaders have been unbelievably supportive and they probably don't like me much from the time we spend on it, but I spend a significant amount of time getting feedback on it, but really based it off a national model that was our framework, which we built it from.
I really appreciate it. I mean, I appreciate the streamlining, because I always have great sympathy for our charters, this cycle for them, because of all the things they have to put together.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate the pacing, Danny, that you're recommending. But I guess I'd also like to hear more, not right now, but just other thoughts around those veteran schools. Because I think there's pacing that process for our schools that have been around for five or less years. It makes sense to me. But then there's PRA, that's been with us for, what is it, Alan, 20-some years?
1996?
Yeah. So I mean, it just seems to me that we ought to be looking at some. I mean, I don't know if it's exemption. I don't know what the term is, and I don't know if other board directors feel similar to me. But it just seems like that when we keep putting these schools that are high-performing schools through these hoops,
I agree.
It just doesn't make sense to me. So
We just need to have some objective measures specifically around that to make sure there's a streamlined process. I think the challenge for us is how do you delineate those schools?
Sure.
And I think what we had to make sure is that there was a metric that allowed us to delineate those schools, that then allowed us to create really a dashboard in particular around that we could provide to our staff, to our Board of Education to be able to see, that really then can honor our schools that have really been performing at a high level for numbers of years, but there's a metric that allows us to delineate what those schools are in particular.
Sure, thank you.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, you didn't. Director Chancha, sure.
You diverted just a tiny bit, which just took me over to a tiny bit of more diversion. Can you give me a general number, and then school district, other schools? Can you give me a general number of percentage of special education kids in our charters?
A general number, general percentage of students. I have a spreadsheet which I can look at. The challenge in making that delineation for the literal aspect of that particular piece is how we've established ourselves as the LEA, as a school district, in the sense of how we identify students and support them with more severe-based needs. So I can give a general number that is there, but it wouldn't be encompassing of those students. But
I
there
get
is
that,
a chart.
but when there's percentages, and generally speaking in our school district percentage, and I'm trying to just get an idea. So if we're going to talk about future and looking at schools in the future, I want to be assured that we're looking at equity for all of our kids across the board, and to assure that all of our kids have opportunities to go to some of our well-established, high-performing schools that are also charter schools.
And Mr. Windsor, if you would also, you used LEA, and we're, for our public,
Local
if you would
education
explain.
agencies.
Yeah, thank you. If
Yep.
you would say that again, please.
Local education agency.
Okay.
Yep.
And go ahead, and so, and did you have a comment to Director Chancho Shore's concern?
What we've tried to do, and we're going to continue to keep doing, is looking at that exact conversation to look at those overall percentages. But we want to make sure there's context when we're looking at those percentages as well, in the sense of what we've established, I think, as a school district, in the sense of how we serve our students. And so we do have percentages and what that looks like from students from 504s to IEPs to every kind of learning plan you can think within our schools as well.
Okay, so you'll send them to me?
Absolutely I can. So it's sitting right here in front of me. So, yep.
Do you want to say them or you want to send them?
Well, there's 20 different schools, and so so that's a part. If you for all of those plans, it's actually a separate percentage for each schools. We can tabulate it to look at what the overall percentage is.
Okay.
But I have it disaggregated by school.
Thank you.
And just as a reference point, Mrs. Ingalls, if I may, do you have a percentage, an average percentage of students that are identified in IEP for our district? Something that would help what Director Chancho Shore is leading to as well, is just to have kind of some comparison data.
The statistic I have includes both preschoolers with IEPs, and it's inclusive of the entire district, including our charter schools, and that is just over 10%.
Okay, so the average is 10% when you include charter, preschool, K through 12.
That's right.
Okay, okay. Director Chancho Shore?
So what an incredible range of schools we serve. And we heard from 5 different schools, and just to kind of reiterate, I mean, 4 that came up in our conversation in the last couple hours, and then 1 before. And to just put some statistics on the table to think about. When we're talking about free and reduced lunch, and we have 90% kids at Hope who have free and reduced lunch, and then 4%, 1.2%, 15%, and 5% at some of our other schools. I just want us to remember that we're looking at statistics that are pretty specifically different. And when you get an SPF and your school performance framework, it tells you one thing. But as we're talking about all these different schools tonight, equity stands out as a really interesting place for us to think about.
And just to clarify, I heard you say 9% free and reduced, 90, yeah, 90%. Thank you.
Hope Online is 90%, and then we have 1.2%, 4%, 15%, and 5% in some of our other schools that were represented this evening. And that's just the one statistic. I'm just talking about when you're looking at school performance frameworks and you're looking at the success of schools, there are lots of different statistics to look at that we don't always consider.
Thank you, Director Chancho Shore. And again, to all our charter friends, thank you for coming out and spending time with us tonight. And again, January 21st, we will render decision-making at that time, but thank you. You guys all did a great job. We appreciate it. All right, next on the agenda is board reports. We'll start out with Vice President items. Yeah, you're good. We can pause a little bit because yeah. Okay, Director Holtzman?
So, as your vice president, I sent out after our last meeting, and you should have gotten in your email, just for your convenience, the 2019-2020 board committee priorities that were identified by the board. And just wanted to let you guys know to let me know if you have questions or want me to facilitate asking questions of the board about that. In terms of the long-range planning committee, at our last meeting, I'm trying to look and see if anybody from Platte River is still here. I think they're in the hallway, but you'll be getting this, we'll be getting this at one of our upcoming meetings, not exactly sure when, but the LRPC has already reviewed a request from Platte River to purchase land that is adjacent to them, and that they have already been using and have been using for a long time. They utilize it as a play/sports field. And so LRPC reviewed the request and concurred with DCSD staff that the staff will pursue investigation of fair market value to present to the board and to bring that request. So that will be coming up at some point. They also continued to give input and review boundary and capacity project, discussed any improvement ideas for the MCP, and I thought that this was really interesting. What we learned was that our MCP, and we kind of already know this, is an incredible document that is actually utilized and as an example of what a great capital plan looks like by other governmental agencies and other school districts. And so the committee concluded that they didn't want to make any major changes, that they already have a really good document. And then in terms of CASB and being your delegate, I am excited to be able to serve on their 22-member board because I believe that it will bring Douglas County's perspective to CASB, which has sometimes been a concern in the past, and we'll have a voice in the executive board now. And all of you, and as well as I, were able to attend the annual convention, and I jotted down just a couple of topics for the community to know, things that we learned about. And these are just a few. There are literally hundreds of them. Effective governance strategies, safety and security, communication, and supporting positive cultures, to name just a few. And then finally, as you know, we briefly reviewed our Douglas County School District legislative priorities at our last meeting on Saturday. And it's my hope to share a draft with all of you soon with approval to be considered by our board in January. And again, we just approved our legislative priorities about 9 months ago. So I don't anticipate great changes, but I will hope to get that to you guys and get your input, and we'll go forward. And for our community to know that it is the job of our board to do this. Our governing policies 1.2 says that specific job outputs of the board as an informed agent of the ownership are those that ensure appropriate organizational performance. Accordingly, the board has direct responsibility to create, and then there's several things, and one of them is a favorable legislative impact. So that's why we have those priorities, and for transparency for our community. And that's all I've got. Thanks.
Very good. Thanks, Director Holtzman. Okay, just a couple of quick reminders. Agenda planning is on December 19th at 10 o'clock next week. Also on the 19th at noon, just to invite all of you, but the new directors, Director Meek and Director Hansen, will be doing an onboarding session with Danny Windsor on kind of Charter School 101 again. So if you need a refresher course, feel free to join us at noon on the 19th. And then also, I think you may have gotten the announcement if you were planning to attend the Douglas County Partnership, government partnership that they have for breakfast. That has been canceled for this month. And the next time will be when we're hosting, and that's on January 15th at 7 o'clock in the morning. So no meeting next week, and we'll start out the new year with us hosting that group of people. That's all I have. Other directors, do you have other reports or other things that you want to report out on? Director Meek.
Sure, we had a DAC meeting on Tuesday evening. I think, yeah. So Tuesday evening this week we met. We went through the school boundary and analysis survey, kind of announced that to the committee there, encouraged folks to make sure they fill that out. The budget survey for SACs is currently open. Every SAC is supposed to submit one response by January 15th. The SACPI, which is this, I don't remember the.
Kevin will know that
Kevin?
acronym. He was a
SACPI.
member of that at one time.
SACPI.
State Advisory Committee for Parent Engagement in Education.
He passes. So they actually have an opening for Congressional District 6 that they will be pushing out shortly to try to fill. The DAC will have a special meeting on January 28th to address UIP and budget, and then the DAC forum is scheduled for February 11th. So those are some big upcoming dates. I also wanted to mention a little bit about the CASB convention. I had the pleasure of facilitating a couple of sessions. One was on the school finance big topic, kind of a number one topic. A lot of bills coming out in the future dealing with that, which may influence our schools. So I think we'll stay posted in that area. But I also had about an hour and a half conversation with Jenny Brundine. She's the education reporter for Colorado Public Radio, talking about teens under stress. I don't know if anyone has listened to any of those series, but it was fascinating. It had probably 100 people in there trying to understand exactly what's causing the mental health issues that we're dealing with in our schools. And so on the CASB website, there's a great resource page that you can go to that has a lot of resources dealing with mental health supports for our schools. That's it for me.
Thank you, Dr. Meek. Anyone else need to report out? One idea that I had heard at the conference for our next item which is meeting evaluation, but one of the suggestions was to designate one board director each meeting to just report out about the meeting evaluation. Did we stick to our norms of things like not overly perseverating and overanalyzing and those kind of things. But what they do is they have just one board member that serves as that process observer during the meeting and then just reports out. So I'd like to, in January, start doing that. I think that'll also help our new directors, Director Meek and Director Hansen, as we continue just to reflect on how we are governing and how we're running our meetings up here. So that was one suggestion I would have, and so next month we will do that. Anything else for the good of the group? I'll entertain a motion for us to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Holtzman, seconded by Chancho Shore. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned.